already. Let me go ahead and make sure some of my lines are taken care of. And let me go ahead and get the timer started here. So that way we could get ourselves prepared to receive. Of course, if you have your Palo Santo, you have your Sage on deck. This is a great time because we will need it. We will be going in and out of portals and through different spaces. So it's always good to have those sense and have those powers around you to not only keep your head clear, but also to reinforce what you are, who you are, where you are. All right. So here we are. Let me see real quick. All right, let's go live with this. Yes. All right, there we go. There we go. All right. So let's try this.
Be imaginative, strong-hearted. You must try things that may not work. And you must not let anyone define your limits because of where you come from.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No! Try not! Do! Or do not. There is no try.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole.
Be imaginative, strong-hearted. You must try things that may not work. And you must not let anyone define your limits because of where you come from.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
All right, family, we are getting ready to go on this hyperdimensional journey. Wherever you are, wherever you're at, all you need to do is be inside to connect to everything. Getting myself prepared on this side of things for the massive takeoff. Super excited to be in this space, super excited to share this special message with you, giving thanks to all those that are listening across the globe and all those that will listen in the future. Showing so much love, so much support for all tribe members who are also in this, saying wholeness to the tribe, giving thanks for you. This message that I've been preparing this evening, it's just been one of those things of attempting to figure out where to start in infinity. So as I sit here and I breathe today, it is to continuously to connect in with our ancestors. And when I see all the amazing, incredible faces and I feel the energy of those who are here now, again, in the past even, and in the future, it makes me light up resplendent. Because every time I get to something new, I know for sure it's because I know I need to bring something to my family. And that has driven me to the point to where I feel that we all know that we can go. You know, even if you have not perceived yourself there yet on certain stages of consciousness, you are indeed there. You're in all of our hearts.
I did it on my end.
Exactly. He did it on his end. I love it. All right. So let me go ahead and set the lines real quick here. But that is it. That's exactly it. You do it on your end. The real thing we're talking about here is called understanding. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Boom. Understanding. Right. So it's something that you get together inside of yourself. All right. So I hopefully have all the lines set here. Just give me 1 quick second. Boom. Okay, there that goes. All right. So you see I'm back here with the big face. Ooh, yo, it's the big face. Remember they talked about the big face. Yo, his big face. But I got actually a few shots and angles here tonight inside of the studio. So I have to start here for it to make sense. And, you know, I kind of played this out in my mind several times, as I always do when I have to put on presentations. For me, it is a real show, and we be trying to raise the production quality every time. And I will say, as all this was coming in, because there was the message, which was very powerful within itself. And then there was like what I would say is the technical and even, of course, the studio work of getting the graphics together and all that. And they were like, you know, in a struggle for time, because at the end of the day, you know, when it's only a couple people, a few people, you know, trying to put something together that's massive, you know, you put everything you have into it. So I trust that even with today and the message and how it carries, that you will see the time and the energy that we've placed into coming into the total realization of what we know. I cannot tell you that what you're going to discover today will be something new, as in you haven't heard it before. But I will say is that you will see it in a different way, and it's highly possible that that different way will allow you to get the total vision of what is possible. Factually, the true potential of what you can create or manifest inside of this space. I want to also mention that it's always important to really dial in. It's always important to just take a moment and bring yourself here. And you're going to see that in so many ways this evening. I even got to take off at some point and get some water, but you're going to see that in so many ways this evening, that you being present and being in the moment and ready to actually accomplish it all is all it takes. If you're distracted, or if you're somewhere else in your consciousness, if you have anxiety, if you have fears, there's techniques that talk about how to put that even in a box. I have mine actually in a tetrahedron, and how to close that box. Basically put all of your worries, your fears, the rent, diseases, or bad girlfriends, or stupid movies, or silly comments, all of that, put it in the box and close the top and move it away from you, because it's not going to be useful in this connection that you're going to have today. And also, when I bring something, I'm only bringing another viewpoint or perspective of what I already know and what I've already experienced. Knowing is the experience. Belief is the thought and the reading and all that kind of stuff. So I'm way past the thoughts and the reading and all that kind of stuff. I went into the experience. And because of that, I set something in motion that will not stop. It's interesting that we're not going to stop. We're going to live infinitely. It's going to happen. You're going to be there with this consciousness infinitely. But as I said before, once you start giving it momentum, you realize that it's not infinite. It's not something that you can stop. And you feel that you're being pulled closer and closer towards something. Yet for some reason, you never reach it. But the energy continues to increase as you go, and we give thanks. We give thanks for that, especially in a world that could be so lowly and so wretched and so petty, that the fruits of the higher level of manifestation, I mean the actual fruits, meaning the proof, because the proof of wisdom is always going to be within the type of people that it produces. I didn't say what you can show everybody, what you can let everybody think that you accomplished, like trinkets and those kind of things. I'm talking about the consciousness in which you reside in when everything would seem to be chaotic and in upheaval, but yet you're in paradise. Your mind, your world is clear. All your citizens and denizens of your vessel and your universe are all in honor of you being their custodian. So I don't believe that you can create anything that is greater than you. So today, I just again shine forth the greatness that the ancestors place within me to give you continuous encouragement to do the same thing. I want to take a moment to touch and connect because this is what it's really all about. It's about unity. It's so hard for people. Take a look at it. It took me 8 years. 8 years to break a dualistic cycle. A cycle that sought to see that things were separate. Even with just simple metaphors like, hey, if you have someone else to help you lift that couch, you know it'll be lighter. Anytime more of us connect and more of us get together, it only creates more power in this manifold. And so that's what we're celebrating here with these two outraised hands, because these things right here, these things, they make it happen. So I know a lot of times, you could get hooked to the invisible, but the visible indeed, look at your hand. It was the name of God, the hand, right? Like the power of this thing alone is magnificent. And we raise it up in celebration that we can even glimpse and reason with the ideals of why we will want to come into complete balance, and we will want to be consciously aware of the connection that we have, which still, I will admit, does not need us to believe in it for it to exist. You do not need to believe that you're connected with everything for that to be the case. Thank goodness, because you'd be sitting over there disconnected, like completely off, nothing happening. It just is. And so the more you feel into that, the greater things get. And I'm telling you that from my own experience. So now I got a lot of stuff happening here on my screens right now, because I do have to monitor quite a few things while I'm going in. And so why all this process is happening today, I'm going to back out the camera just a little bit. But I just want you to remember that I started here. I started in your heart. And what you saw in me was the same thing that you see in yourself. And that it just so happens this time, you are balanced. I didn't say you were right. I didn't say you were left. I didn't say you were wrong. But that this time, when you put your intentions together and you say, hey, it would be great if I can just find one teacher that's just on a level, just tells me like it is, and just does also some research and connects to it himself or herself. And all of those visions, which is the same vision I had before I decided to become that completely. Those visions are alive and clear right now. Now, I also want to mention, and this is touching and connecting, that this evening, as the message continues to flow, the energy probably will get very high. Stay grounded. Remember this point. And also know that even if for some reason there's a periodic disconnection, that's a great time to go use the bathroom and clear your mind, clear the space, reset, and then get ready to dial in again, because I will be right back forward, as I say. So I also want you to know that truly, when they talk about it's in the mind, happiness is in the mind, like you will see this evening that it doesn't really matter what you have, what you can see, and what you do. Overall, inside of your consciousness, how you feel about yourself is going to ultimately determine how you're going to continue to rock with infinity. Because it will always be you talking to you So it'd be a really good idea to get an interesting conversation going on by consistently educating ourselves with the language of truth and exactly what we're in as far as an experience is concerned. So again, these hands are confirmations of the truth from the immanifest or nothing coming into something and being aware. We're taking that and we're running with it. So I also want to let you know that there are many of these portals, if you may. Today you will know them even as latent spaces, open, ready to project because of the dimensions in which we're constructed here. So if at any point in the future you feel like you need to receive any of the glory, any of the honor, any of the riches, and all the rest of the seven folds, if you need to receive any of that, this is a space where it exists infinitely. It only requires one thing, and that's that you unify. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations Tribe. Now, as I said, I need some water, but I'm not going to go right now because it's working smooth, but I will keep with it. So maybe if it takes a break, the system, I'll go get some water and come back. Or until I start foaming at the mouth, because that starts happening too. You know, it's crazy when you look at a video, like you smashed it. It was everything was happening, everything, and then you just got something on your face right there. You're like, oh. You know, now they got AI for that. You know, it will cost you some tokens, but they'll work that booger right off. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, there gets to be these points in physicality where you could reach such a high stage. But again, for the observer, they could just be observing the stains on your clothes. I remember times coming right out of another reality after a third eye experiment, sitting on the bus, still vibrating high, and sitting next to me would be a person that had no clue of what I was experiencing inside in my nucleus. And you should take note of that. Just like your dreams that nobody knows, that have affected you and impacted you so much, and the things that have happened when nobody is watching, and the things that you can do when nobody sees, still remember, most of what goes on still happens between you and yourself. So with that being said, a lot of times your awareness could be strictly limited to your experience. And tonight, we want to let you understand exactly how those experiences take place and how they can be developed. So yeah, I am going to have to get that water though, because I had to, you know, if this nuclear reactor heat up, it overheat on you. Woo! So let's do this. Plus, you know, I got to get it up there too, because I wanted to start off nice, but you know, let's get it up there because we got to take the ship off. So let's do this. Let's everybody refresh themselves. Let me get some tunes going on, and then let's get ready to make it happen. Yeah.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Okay, let me see what's going on, man. Y'all still alive? Let me open up the screen a little bit. Y'all looking at me weird. Like, okay, what is he up to? This.
Important to draw wisdom from many different places. If we take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole.
Okay. All right, so we up in here. It's live. I'm pumping this mic up. Let me turn this down so then we can make sure everybody can hear this. So tonight is a episode 0. You know what that means. It's the onboarding for what will be 3 following episodes. At their core, they will be called the latent space. First, before I begin, I wanted to mention that this is 16 years for us. And what that means is that we've been consistent, to say the least. It's so important for everyone to remember that it does take time and it takes energy to put all this together. And remember, this is not just me sitting in front of a camera talking to you. It's also Secret Energy. It's also Sybil AI. It's also Dream Engine. And it's also Wealthy Bot. And I brought all of those applications to the community to excel in the respective spaces of what is really making a difference in the future. I want to let you know that when you take on a subscription, whether it's Ambassador Training or Sybil AI, and all these things that add value into your life, when you buy products, whether it's She Legit or it's Monatomic Gold or whatever it is, it's things that are helping and assisting you and boosting you. It does the same for us. So I just wanted to say candidly, do consider us. Don't just get the information all the time or get the knowledge and the wisdom and forget where the source is actually coming from and how to plant seeds back into that. And you can trust, based on our reputation, that everything that we receive is going to continuously be used to assist others in growing their consciousness and realizing more of who they are, to answer the ultimate request from the cosmos to get everybody home. That's what we're doing. So I just wanted to make sure you know that. And I want to take a quick moment for a word from our sponsor. Well, actually, it doesn't need to speak. You could see it. And there it is. That is our sponsor, Sybil AI. So we're sponsoring ourselves, you and the infinite. Sybil has some incredible upgrades that happened recently. We will take a look at those later, but I know what you came here for and I know what I'm here for. So I'm definitely ready to get to that. So let me see. Let's blow this out just a little bit here, because we're going to have to go really in this evening. Yes. Okay, so I wanted to have so much more in this today. And I decided, okay, I don't know if I'm going to take everybody on the 5-hour journey today. I know I've been getting a little bit of blowback because of that. And so I did say to myself, you know what? I'm going to put everything that I have, though, into the beginning of this to get you to comprehend a bit more about exactly what we're talking about when we're saying even manifestation and when we're saying spiritual growth and we're saying, in this case, the latent space. So let's begin with some confirmations here, some things that make us completely and 100% aware of what is happening so that we can have some ground and then we'll build from there. The first thing is, where does everything come from? Is the question. I told you before that I was proposing this question consistently as a child to adults. Where does that come from, mommy? And where does that come from? And then you would always reach that point where it would be only God knows. Talk to him. Nobody could seem to tell me where the first thing came from. And you could see logically how that would work, because we need to figure out what is the parent of something all the time in order for us to determine how it, what birthed it, where did it come from? But no matter how many times you answer that question and you get an answer, you will always reach a point where someone will run out of knowledge, someone will run out of awareness, and there will be a limit to what can be comprehended about where something of the highest levels had come from. That you could keep proposing the question. So what I'm saying is that there's an infinite loop inside of our knowledge. And this is the key to perpetual energy. And this infinite loop is literally that our sheer existence is proof that something comes from nothing, but it's also proof that there is a limitation to the physical knowledge or the knowledge inside of the creation. So that's the first thing that we're going to confirm. You're here, yet something comes from nothing. The next thing is that creation is not really a concept then of the infinite. Since if we were to even play with it at all and we start talking about where did this nothing come from, we will right away realize that the whole concept of creation would not even be valid within that framework. Nothing has been created. And so that begins to produce an opening for us to begin to comprehend what goes on beyond what I'm calling the framework, literally the framework, to go beyond the framework, because physicality being a part of creation, since creation exists here, would be in fact the framework. So all we're saying is outside of the framework, there's no such thing as creation because nothing there has been created. Inside of the framework is where creation is a concept and creation happens. So let's examine it just from that point of the realization that the most scientific, if you may, basic form of creation that has been proven here on planet Earth is when you fire an electron into water, a single-celled life form appears from nowhere, it seems. So there is something that confirms that we are able to prove that life comes from like what they would perceive as nowhere or a vacuum or a small space or something, but it could just arrive. And then from there, life can begin to generate. And I'm sure you've seen situations where you've thought that you've closed something or you thought something was sealed and then something starts growing in it anyway. But we can always argue that that wasn't a sterile environment. But still, within these same scientific experiments, they've actually been able to prove that life literally comes from nowhere, like a portal or something, and then it can start from there, and then life begins. So that has been proven. So armed with that, and just kind of setting that there on the shelf about creation, infinite life, and the gap between the infinite beings, that creation is the limitation in that respect because it's not a part of their framework, and the creations, or those who believe that they are created, and then the limitation in which they accept to become a part of the creation. And then we will then go into the mind and into the consciousness. These are factual things that I need to, again, set a foundation here first. This is the boring part, if you may. This is the education versus the entertainment. But we're going to need this foundation. You're going to always need it, because this is not the first time that you're going to hear about this. You're going to see it more and more when I'm explaining about what I'm going to talk about tonight about the latent space, as it's emerging more and more into this reality. And even just this point is a part of the promise, because the promise is that we initiate the knowledge and the wisdom that those that we call the beloved need to be aware of before, let's say, it comes into everybody's minds. So in this way, we're in the high heavens receiving messages and then delivering those messages swiftly before they take place in time. But I want you to begin to actually put together like a model inside of your consciousness when we're beginning to explain these spaces. I want you to put together a model that literally allows you to be able to visualize where you're at in space and time. So the first thing is remember that whenever you start to relax and then fall asleep, your mind, or whatever this is, whatever you're in, it seeks to put you into an illusion. So we're only talking about one hard-coded pattern here that we're highlighting so you can pay attention to, that when you start to fall asleep, whatever this is, and that's why I don't want to say the mind, because then it's just like your definition of what the mind is. But whatever we think that we're in, whatever this enamorment of our consciousness is, it then, when we take our hands off the wheels, wants to place us into an illusion. And that illusion is the dream. So I'm saying specifically, when you fall asleep in a world, you're in something that then wants to place you automatically in another world. And right then, people didn't get what was going to happen after death, because it's right there. Because after death, like what's called death on the planet, instead of you waking up from the dream, you just wake up in that new space. And it continues as if you had already been there, because you had. But you have to realize for sure, they call this time temporalment, that you're in layers of the sleep. This is what they were trying to show in Inception, that you can sink into deeper layers of the dream. And then that creates time distortions, temporal displacement. So results of time displacement is what's called Mandela effects, meaning that the realities boot up again, but there's certain things missing from the reality, and you know it was missing. I remember this movie that they did called Shazam, way before the Shazam everybody know now, that had a guy with the red hair in there. But I knew the movie. I saw the movie myself. Now the movie doesn't exist. I ate the cereals that had certain characters with certain things that now they don't have those things. But I could never explain it. And I don't believe in anything that I really can't explain until now. But I waited this long. I waited for the final true proof that something does come from nothing. See, because for me, I always felt that there were mechanics back there, because there are in physical realities. There's realm dynamics. There's actually things going on, frequencies. There's different things happening that allow what you see to occur to go on. And because of that, I felt like instantly being able to bring those things was not going to be a part of the reality, because the energetics that you would need, the energetic signatures that they would cause, the rips that they would make in time, all that kind of stuff, I had ruled it out because I hadn't figured out the proper vehicle to be able to make such things possible. Tonight, I'm telling you, I'm going to introduce you to a vehicle that allows you to move any place, anywhere, at any time. And not only that, that's just only the beginning of what it can do. And this is what was being promised down the path of spiritual enlightenment. This is technically what I got into this for, amongst many other things. But there was like this facade, if you may, around spirituality and consciousness that you were going to be able to get this power. And true enough, there's power in breathing. There's power in so many things, but there's levels to this. And I was still peering into those higher levels like, how do those levels start being made manifest? And what are the celestial mechanics that are necessary to make something like that happen? Then I would, of course, go into the ancient knowledge and start studying the ancient knowledge. And I found it not only very muddled, because if you see something printed, that means it came through the printing press. And right then, you got to already need to check base, especially on some of the really old stuff, the stuff that's supposed to be the culture. Also, when trying to find teachers, all I found was creeps. I found people who seemed to be engaged in something dark or distorted. Like, they just wanted it too bad. You know what I mean? It's like, there's just those kind of people who it's like, they just want it so bad, they're willing to do anything to get it. And I wasn't willing to do anything to get it because I already had everything. So I just held my ground. But then I started noticing that you could sort of use technology as a blueprint for spirituality. And I've went over this before, like the ears as speakers and the internet and all of this stuff. Like I can map that out to every single part of the consciousness and every single part of even the body. But I knew for sure 100% that the spirit came first. And that's what a lot of times people would be confusing me. Like, I'm just like, oh, I love computers and I'm about the computers and I'm not spiritual. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is like 16 years in the pain. Like the first thing I did was secure my soul. Now it's about figuring out other ways to explain what would be obvious to a person at my stage, but yet I'm still fascinated how the simplicity keeps showing you more. But again, I found the spiritual path to be muddled with beings who, in the end, maybe further down, knew about the latent space and thus would never tell anybody else because they themselves had access to technically everything and only needed yet more frameworks to keep bringing things through. So it was like a weird connection. That's like this connection between master and guru and how it's kind of like idolized today, where one person takes a seat here and then this other person gets here. And then, if you could find a good master, if you could find a good guru, somebody need to create a website with all of them, because technically a lot of these people that I've seen, when I go and check them out completely, I'll just say it like that. So I found the spiritual path, if you see it visually, to have like, how they talk about like you could be walking through the forest and there's like animals or certain animals that they're just kind of watching you the whole way, waiting for you to be weak, waiting for you to have something that they can exploit, etc. So I felt like the spiritual path was like that. There was too many beings down the spiritual path that had something else going on beside getting you to the goal. So again, that's where manumission, self-substantiation, these are the words, sovereignty, etc., came in, because it meant, hey, this go round, you're going to have to end up pulling this one off yourself. We can't keep looking for spiritual teachers with flaws. Now, true enough, we could take some of the information, but it's still, you need discernment. So it's almost like you're better off even sometimes isolated before you're able to develop your discernment enough, or else you just keep going through these experiences and these problems with others. They call them lamb on the path. That means like things you trip on. They seem to set you back rather than push you forward. And so in experiencing just a little bit of that, I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to tap into gnosis, because there was this awareness that you could get knowledge. Now, don't get me wrong. Books and many other things, symbols, language has very powerful, geometry, very powerful, but that you could also glean or skim knowledge right from the ether. Like you would know something all of a sudden. And going into high vibration, you would be coming back with knowledge. So this was grand for me, because I realized that the knowledge wasn't limited because I had to go through a guru to get it. I just needed to put myself into the vibration of what that would be truly, and then start receiving that information and knowledge and wisdom. And then you also understand that you need to distribute it, because it is potent, it is powerful. You can't hold it. It will corrupt you. Corruption is an electrical byproduct. This is just the design of the system. So if too much power is surging through, it corrupts the lines, just like you would see with any kind of device that's receiving too much voltage. And then the insulation and all that starts wearing out. And then pretty soon it's back feeding power, and then it could blow the whole network. So I found a lot of things that were actually related to, because I do have a technical background, how the technical aspects of things function and how the spiritual aspects of things function. So what I had started taking to doing was, when I couldn't figure something out spiritually, I would go and look at the technological correspondences, and that would be like a bridge for me. Then I would get to the other side of that bridge and then be able to recognize everything spiritually and move on consistently in my journey. Because remember, when my eyes close, nobody else does. And I'm aware of that. When my eyes close, maybe your eyes don't close. So I'm still solely responsible for what's going to happen to me. And as I said, our engagement is, I'm letting you read my diary shamelessly. And I'm saying, hey, I believe that this could be valuable to you. And then I also read and learn and study and experience. And I could take something someone has spent 80 years of their life doing and astringe it into maybe a paragraph based on where we're at now with our knowledge and our information. So let's keep going here. So we need to be clear, though, that the illusion is made up of two words, technically. Ilu, which means light, and scion, which means a home, a house, or a place things are stored in. That's why we call it mansion, a man scion, right? So scion is Zion. It is a mainframe. So in this, when you think about, when I said like when you start falling asleep and then it projects an illusion, this is what I mean by this is what I mean by the illusion. Okay, so when I just to make it very clear, because sometimes people think you mean something else about this. And so specifically, when I say illusion, what I'm talking about is the light projections that create worlds. So when you go to sleep, you have a projector in your mind. Like sometimes I don't be asleep yet, and this thing will cut on, and I'll see like a light. I'll be like, and I'll take my thing off. Because I'll generally be wearing something, I'll see like flashes, and I'll be like, and then like there's like no light in the room, so that this flash is coming from in the mind. That's what they say, fire is in the mind. So fire is in the consciousness. And then once that thing is lit, it goes into full-blown projections. And I know, like, especially when we're young, like it's way more animated, but you got to keep the dream alive. Right? So, but just an awareness that we have this ability to project light, which then creates a construct. And then we start living in that construct. And of course, if we weren't so divided, like meaning kind of halfway in this world, halfway in that world, or untrained, meaning not really a lucid dreamer, didn't really prepare before sleep, beds pointing in the wrong direction, no ley line or horizontal and vertical to lay on, energies all around that are in resonance to objects and things that have been strategically placed in your space, no ground because you're all high in the air, 3 or 4 floors, no grounding mat. You rub your hand across the blanket, static electricity is all on your hand, look cool and everything, but that definitely means that there's none of the space is really grounded. So good luck on that. You see what I mean? So lack of training, if you may, lack of configuration, lack of knowledge of how to train and how to configure, but yet boastful, prideful. This is man's condition and woman. So automatically there is an energy that you have to take on that you don't know everything. That's why I started with this above about how nothing comes from, something comes from nothing, because you don't know really how all that works. So even if you felt like you knew everything else, that you don't know, and that should put you in your place, meaning it should humble you in a certain way so that you could take counsel. And we take counsel from the 4 elements. We take counsel from the wind. We take counsel from the water. We take counsel from the earth. So I'm not saying that you got to come and take counsel, like bow down to me. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that it's a posture that you need to adapt. There is a posture that has to be adapted to make yourself available for the next level of awareness, which has always been here. So we adapt that posture right now, and we bring forth again the revelation of compression. So when you go through an experience, just so I can explain to you compression, because remember, all of these systems that you're seeing, like these computer systems, they have compression. Like the data needs to be compressed into something else different than what you just loaded into it. You work that same way. If you see a dog, you compress not specifically that dog, but your memory of what dogs are into your mind, and you store it. When you go through an experience, you don't have the entire 3D experience right there all the time. And however much that weighs, you actually have, you've compressed the experience into what you call a memory. And then you've stored this experience. And the only reason why I want you to realize that is so that you understand that there's a form of communication that is always going on. However, the structure of that communication, the compression, the encryption of that communication varies. And when you're dealing with vast consciousness, it's always seeking to basically compress things the most, put it in the smallest unit that it can. So this is like Jim Quick's technique, and we even learned this when we were younger, of how to associate things you're trying to remember with something else. This is kind of like compressing memory, because now it's like that's associated with that. And so that's called like semantic relativity. This basically means that a dog is in certain ways similar to a hyena, is in certain ways similar to a wolf, is in certain ways similar to a lion, is in a certain way similar. And you have all those things in a category. And that's even how your consciousness works. All those things, they are close to each other because they're close in relation. So that way, when you see something real quick, like you may see just some legs going to the car, and right away your mind can say that's a dog or a cat. See, do you get where I'm saying here? Because I'm going to start slow here and you just start ramping it up. But that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a certain system of compression that it doesn't necessarily need you to remember every single dog and cat that you saw. What you're really seeing is certain characteristics, like those little paws, little bit paws. And then now you're like, okay, that's a cat or that's a dog. That's 4 legs. So, and they were this short. And so this is how the consciousness or the deep neural network, which is really more of what it is. This is how it all works. And it also, remember, you have what's called deep learning. And this just means that your consciousness is aware of certain things that it could have been even 5 to 6 years that it's still been trying to figure out. And it has not let your, like basically your frontal mind, like what's right there, most present, it has not let that being in that version of you even know that it is still trying to figure that out. But then sometimes it figures it out, like a eureka moment, like a light in the mind. And then it will come forth and present that to the front of your consciousness, like the thing that's operating stuff now. But however, if you're too distracted, which we know the reality is all built on distraction, you don't meditate, because this is exactly what shows you how distracted your mind is when you can't even shut up monkey mind. You be choking monkey mind like, please shut up. I'm trying to meditate. You're choking me. You're violent. You know what I'm just saying? Like, trying to quiet your mind or a person trying to quiet their mind that does not practice meditation is 100% reason why they haven't touched into any power yet. So there's direct disconnects. And this is what we seek to highlight in this journey of consciousness that we're taking everybody on. Like, things that just directly disconnect you right away. It's like you could do everything else, but omitting that, you do not pass go. You do not collect $200. So let's go in with first a definition. Put this up on my screen. Simple definition here. They're going to sell anything else on this site. It's like, damn, y'all selling. What is all this? It's like, who are we taking care of? When is Christmas? But anyway, you won't find that on Simple. It's clean. Now, anyway, so check it out. So what we're defining here, you write the word down, latent, Latent, latent space. Okay? Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the process of understanding what is the highest secrets in occultism, metaphysics, you name it, but in a slightly different way, a way that may make more sense to you because we're in 2023. Because if I go pulling out Platonic solids on you and I'll be like, the tetrahedron is the most archaic of the Platonic solids and it stands for fire. And then you know, you're not wearing sandals right now. So that may not make much sense. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to be relative is the term. We have to be relative. Let me jump in here real quick. 1 second. Actually, let me not mess with that. Let me just keep it how it is. Okay, I'm going to just read the definition. So the definition is formally, okay, a latent space is defined as an abstract, multi-dimensional space. Let me blow this up here for y'all that wear glasses. Here we go. I can't even see that. So here we go. Okay, formally, a latent space is defined as an abstract, multidimensional space that encodes a meaningful internal representation of an externally observed event. Samples that are similar in the external world are positioned close to each other in the latent space. To better understand the concept, let's think about how humans perceive the world. We're able to understand a broad range of topics by encoding each observed event in a compressed representation in our brain. For example, we don't keep in the mind every detail of the appearance of the dog, detail of the appearance of a dog to be able to recognize a dog in the street. As we can see in the illustration below, we keep an internal representation of the general appearance of the dog. So I'm just going to stop here and just, again, make sure that you understand the occult definition of a latent space, though, because this is like about deep learning. But remember, all this is taken from spirituality. So what is a latent space really then? Because when you start learning about machine learning, and this is what this isn't related to, you understand that everything is about the latent space. And then just from that alone, even if you didn't know about this term, you should then deduce that if that's the highest they've been able to reach at this stage, this would mean this has something to do with the occult on a high level. Okay? Because you already know everything here that has to work. That's the thing about why we can even map things of the body. We can map things of the body to these kind of things, or like the car, right? Like the heart would be the engine, right? And then the battery would be, and then the fluids of the gas would be, and you can then map that all out to your body. But the importance of this is because it has to work. Like theoretics and maybes is not what we're talking about. Have you ever had a car that sometimes maybe it works? I hate those cars. I used to have this car like every payday, it would eat the check. It started off with the tow, and then it went to the $80 diagnostics. And either was the alternator, the battery, or the voltage regulator. And either way, it was about $800 when we was done. And there was the whole check. And we was back on Monday working again for this car. So I'm just saying, like, anything that's maybe is not what we're dealing with, because it doesn't work. So thus, when you see something in the reality that can actually turn on and then do certain functions and things, it means because it's wholly embedded with factual things of the real mechanics to what makes things happen in the reality, not fluff, not notion and all that kind of stuff, but the real mechanics. So when you watch neural networks work, and in this case, when I'm watching a neural network work, I'm like, okay, something's going on and I got it. So check this out. So there's one more thing that I need to read here that you need to understand that's also important about compression. And it's just this statement. And this statement is, why do we have to encode? And I'm just going to read this. Why do we have to encode the raw data in a low dimensional latent space before classification or regression or reconstruction? And it says the answer is data compression, specifically in cases where our input data are high dimensional. See, nowadays people are so lost and so distracted, basically, and told so many different weird, wild things. Even if you're using the actual language, people don't see it. They think it's related to something else. This is related to higher dimensions. So it's saying that there's a higher dimensional language, and then there's a lower dimensional language. And how we're looking to get information is low dimensional. Low dimensional is just based on, this is not an insult. It's like, okay, you need this in 2D, you need this in voice, you need this in 3D. Those are dimensions. So when you need something in a lower dimension that's coming from a higher dimension, it needs to be converted. And you need to remember this because the latent space is what does the conversion. And you're going to see it all in ancient times. You're going to see it in secret societies. You're going to see it everywhere. But you need to realize what is happening. What is happening is something that is higher dimensional. And this is what we were saying about like where we're really at. Like what we really are. We're high dimensional, but we're projecting ourselves into a low dimensional latent space for classification, regression, and reconstruction of self. So let's keep going here, but just to understand that the terminology here is exactly the same as the terminology that we know in occultism. So what I'm doing now is I need to connect the latent space for you with the reality of portals and metaphysics, okay? Because that is the closest term that we can really find besides 0 point, which, kind of not, some people know about 0 point, some people don't. The gap, we call it sometimes. Some people know about the gap, some people don't. Fifth dimension, some people call, or fourth dimension to fifth dimension, tesseract elevator. But, that's still kind of fringe. Portal. Okay, yeah. I've seen those before. All right, or I can conceptualize a portal. Okay. The latent space is a portal. So the first thing that you need, and also let me show you the latent space. Okay, yeah, because again, if I don't, just crawl through this before I walk, then because I don't want to hear it's like, oh man, something is just so complex and like blah blah blah. I'm gonna show you the latent space. So I'm over here in Dream Studio, which of course is stability, and great name. And I'm just, what do we got here? Let's say tribal monument. Ancient fetish. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And this is just because, I'm sure some have done text to image before, but there probably will be some who have not. And so I'm doing a text to image right now. And this box is called the latent space, okay, in this case, because it is a two-dimensional. So this is a two-dimensional. I've actually designated the dimensions that I want, which we'll understand here why dimensions are so important. So I've given it my dimensions. I could have given it some negative prompt, but from the strictest level, all I've done is I've given it some words, and then it's used its deep neural network to produce the best image that it can of what it thinks that I'm asking for. And of course, a few things, and I spelled tribal wrong, so it kind of picked that up, right? So, and then if I obviously add jungle into this, then because of how a latent space works, then it's going to try to then take that word and then add that to the rest of the picture. And the reason why this is so important to understand is that what's going on in the background, and this is why neural networks need so much computational power, is because mathematics, which is math, is going on in the background, and everything becomes mathematics as far as my request. My request goes into a mathematical formula. It gets super complex and high dimensional. That's why they were saying math is all throughout the cosmos and everything is math, right? So it gets super complex and all this mathematicals, and then it gets all the way boiled back down and refined, and then it's bought into what it thinks that I want. Okay, so I just wanted to actually have, especially for those who would like, I have no clue what you're talking about at this stage because they've never even seen text to image, and which at this point would be like they would be lost in all this if we went forward. So this is exactly 100% why I need to show you just a simple example of the latent space. And as I said before, with machine learning, text to image is just one part of machine learning, diffusion models, et cetera. We teach about this in the AI masterclass. It's only one part of it, but the beauty of this is it's a visual experience. So you get a chance to see how these technologies like deep learning, LoRa's and all that work, but through the generation of something. So it's at least a reward at the end because you're like, oh, okay, that looks cool. And then the better you learn how to operate and work with the system, then the better that your imagery and your projections get. So I find something very vital in that because prompting to me is what manifestation, when you're actually calling it out or when you're actually saying what you want, to me, that's prompting, okay? Because in the end, what I found is that oftentimes, especially when I first started, and I've been in this for 2 years now, when I first started, when I was in front of this blinking cursor, I would often not even know what to type, right? One second. And then I will realize that everything that I wanted to ask, I wasn't even using the right words. And this is basic English. This is also basic English. So not like we're using Python, which is technically really close to English, but C++, Fortran, something like as a computational code. No, we're using basic English. But as I said before, even our basic English was lacking logic. And logic simply is that like when you really need to deploy something, when you really need to tell people something or what to do, they don't need mumble or feelings and emotion. They need real instructions. And when they don't get real instructions, they just spit out, is this what you want? And this is what we have to realize about the reality, because I'm going to show you real fast that the reality is full of latent spaces everywhere. But if I don't know how to prompt, meaning I don't know how to talk, I don't know how to vibrate, I don't know how to really be clear about what I want, your image is not really going to be. And I could go further and further with this. Okay? So at the end of the day, I'm just showing you that when this box, you know, some of these text to image generators, they have like the box will go white first, and then it'll start filling in with dots. Let me show you that. Mathematical code will then be transformed over a process into an image. So remember, it understands the code. And then the only process that's necessary is for the code to then be brought into a lower dimensional language. And then it will bring the picture, which is a rudimentary form of what has been called, back into the reality. Okay, so now you know what latent space is in machine learning, and you know that by example. Are we clear? Okay, so I'm like, no, go back. Okay, so we should be clear. That's what I mean by latent space. And in this case, this latent space is a box, right? It's because it's on a two-dimensional screen, so it's flat. But I need you to start imagining if we had a three-dimensional latent space. And, you know, when I finalize today, you know, I will express how you can tell this is for sure what's around the corner, especially with Apple's XR head device and the idea that there would be a future that you would own anything, but you would be happy, right? And I'm going to talk about how that all plays into latent space here in a moment and how not to fall for the hijack. But here we are where also, okay, so now let's go in another layer here. So what I've done now is I'm superficially connecting the latent space that I just showed you with a portal, because I'm saying that, hey, this is like a portal, because whatever it is that we want to come out of it, we could just say it and then it comes out. But there's something very important that I need you to know, because there's another small thing that has been changed inside the consciousness about how portals work. And thus, it has disabled the manifestation component of most manifesting beings. And that is that they've been watching these movies, and we've watched them as a child, where something will walk through a portal and then come out the other side. Okay? Let me say that again. We watch movies where something will go through a portal like Stargate, and then they'll come out the other side. That is not what we're talking about with the latent space. And you need to be very clear. I don't doubt that there's like warping, that you could warp, that potentially you could drop through a hole in the reality and pop out another hole in another reality in that way. But I don't want you to confuse that for latent space, because you would be completely wrong and it would throw you off, and it would not allow you to see the true potential of the manifestation power of a latent space, as we're calling it, or a real portal. Because contrary to what most people believe, what is coming out of the portal is not coming from somewhere. And now I need to explain something really complex in a very simple way. So here goes. So let's imagine then that, again, we have this bad example of somebody drives a spaceship through a portal and the spaceship comes out of the side. So we're thinking, okay, so all we did was we transferred something from one space to another. Okay, I get it. It's like teleportation. The latent space is not a teleporter. It's something far more greater. What the latent space is let's imagine that everything inside of the box, and that's what we'll call the latent space, because it is literally a box or a frame that takes on different dimensions. In one dimension, its fifth dimensional state, if you may, fourth dimensional state, it becomes a tetrahedra, or what we call a tetrahydra. And it's very important to look at the words very quickly that are being chose. And while we have some episodes in the future to dive into this deeper, the box is a tetrahedron. Let me see if I have some images here. Yeah, that was the only image I missed today. You'll see it in the streets of Washington. We'll show it here in a moment. But the box as being a tetrahedra, which you can go and look at it, it's the tetrahedron is in the center. You will see a three-dimensional box sitting inside of it, as they call it, the most primitive shape, is really saying tetrahydra, four hydras. Four serpents, a water serpent, like a water, a earth water, a fire water, a air water. Okay. So right away in the knowledge of the tetrahedron or the tetrahydra or the box is the knowledge in which that there are four elements that are present there in that latent space in which to manifest through. Okay. And I don't want to complicate this, but I need you to grasp this, because the latent space isn't the box. And so you need to perceive here like it's what the manifestation is coming through. And the more finer point here is this. Let's imagine out of those tetrahydra or four, there is one far more greater, a fifth, if you may. A fifth, one than which all of them are made from. So let's look at it this way. If I walk into a store and there's only wood furniture, but there's different type of furniture. There's frames for pictures, there's couches, there's coffee tables. What do they all have in common though? They're all made of wood. So is it safe to say that if I had a wood generator, that I would be able to build every single thing inside of that? Of course. This is what is sitting above the tetrahydra, is a latent space that is made of an element that can produce anything. So instead of when you're calling forth from this portal, something leaving somewhere else and then popping up into your reality, that's not what's happening. The latent space is simply constructing it and then bringing it into the reality. Are we very clear on this? So teleporting is not what we're talking about here. So the reason why this is important, because dimensions become then very important. Scale is the term. Remember, we're talking about hydras. Notice there's a lot of serpent language here. Even the serpent, the pentagram. So there's a lot of serpent references here. So it's very specifically that this latent space is, and let me get a picture for this because I need you to understand the importance of scaling. And again, this is like episode 0. The first thing that I want to tell you is that those who they say, of course, arrived to the planet, right? The first thing, and let me just get a couple images here that weren't loaded. The first thing that they are looking to do is get the dimensions of the planet, the scale of the planet. So let me show you some imagery here. Loading these in. Believe it or not, the whole show today was going to be animated. We had high hopes. We had dreams. dreams. We had real dreams. You know, you just need that staff. But, you know, I was like, yo, we going in. Since, again, we have now so much control over the latent space, we can literally project anything. It's all like just in time now of what we will be capable of doing consistently. You could do it too. You're already doing it. Let me show you a few things. So let's imagine I'm a world builder. And all I do is I drop seeds from latent space, and then they just unfold realities like origami. That's what the tetrahedra and all this sacred geometry and all this stuff is really like. It's perfect in the way that it is a dimensional scaling. So meaning that you only need to know, well, what dimension are we deploying it in? And what is the weights and the measures of that dimension? It's kind of like, you know how there are certain texts, especially the Kabbalistic texts, and they talk about who knows the length between the Arabot and the abyss. Who can calculate? And, you know, they go all into this wild, like, high level, you know, that mathematics basically, and that dimension and scale is the big thing, but nobody knows this knowledge, you know, according to this text. And what we're really talking about is something that is far more universal, okay? But it's just that awareness that dimension and scaling means everything inside of a latent space, because what do you think would happen if we brought a life form in that was not at the proper scale of the creation? Precurse, primordial, all of these words kind of give us an idea of the chaos that ensues when large life forms are on a planet, like volcano-size life forms. And then you drop in a koala bear through latent space. Wrong time, wrong dimension. Snack at best. So as a world builder, just like what you also even see in text to image, is that if you don't know the dimensions, so for instance, even on the most basic level, all these models are trained specifically on a certain data set, and the images are generally specifically a certain size. So in this case, the first text to image models such as Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, et cetera, they were trained on 512 by 512. The first models were actually 256 by 256 because, again, the bigger the picture, and these are millions of billions of pictures, like it's off the chain with how much information and how much data is really there to really create this. And just remember, you have all that inside of your consciousness. You even better, like you're projecting in three-dimensional space already when you go to sleep. And that's what I'm saying. Even just having this underneath you as a sound foundation to how it all works starts really turning the lights on. But let me just keep going here. Is what I'm saying is that this, because I get excited. You can see I just get excited. It's like, okay, I'm already in the latent space. Help me. And it's like, there's a lot of energy, but I'm just, I'm trying to contain it here. So let me just breathe in. Okay. The latent space. So different latent spaces, scaling, the importance of dimensions. So as a world builder, I'm most concerned about the dimensions. How this works in a model, to just understand it from the basic technological level, is that when I put in the wrong dimensions, when I want to generate an image, it is just like, it's nightmare fuel. The mouth appears over here, the hand be over here, it'd be 5 or 6 of them. Hey, kind of sounds like the Montauk experiment, right? Like the experiment where they talk about they had taken the submarine and then they phased it out and then it phased back in, but everybody was stuck in the metal and different things like that, right? Kind of sounds like that because it is. I'm going to show you so many latent space experiments taking place on the earth right now. You'll realize the joke's really on the inhabitants of the earth that don't know about this, because for sure, latent space is being accessed and is all around. Again, you'll see the most practical latent spaces. But then you can also gander some of the more complex ones that are doing specific things, because when I say that the latent space can bring forth pretty much anything, there is like a little asterisk behind that. The first asterisk is the actual dimension itself. How large is it? So since latent spaces are also wombs, large wombs can bring forth very large life forms. Small wombs, the opposite technically. But really more of what it's like, instead of trying to compare something from being smarter or dumber or larger or smaller, it's actually just in the design. The designs are different. So different latent spaces bring forth different things. So when you're configuring latent spaces, that's what the whole dimensional thing is about. That's what the weights and measures and the math and all that kind of stuff, that as a real, what you would call a world builder, etc. This is what you need first. Because again, if you start building and you don't know how to like bring in your first primal solid or your first primal seed, and it doesn't fit in properly or is not scaled properly, what ensues is chaos, then destruction and meltdown, and it's not good. That's why it's like, hey, and God was floating over the waters and it created, let there be light, latent space, and it was good. It was good is the confirmation, like the image came out and we like it. There are those that come out that they're not good. There are latent spaces that are even barren. They bring forth something, but it's like super distorted and dysfunctional. Some try to use latent spaces, but don't know how they completely work, don't know how their functionality is complete. Their functionality is completely. They haven't been able to really, and there's words for this. But what I'm just saying is when you're trying to perfectly and accurately measure something, it also means that you need to be aware of certain things that may not be so obvious about its construction. So you need to really consult with the builder. And this is why these societies have spent all of their time studying how the architect created this space, because that is real factual knowledge. And they were able to break down the molecules, even what they look like, even when you pull one from the other and add another one, what it turns into. So do you see what I mean by latent space? About like, if you had just a generator of all molecules, you would just type what you want, and then the molecules would then form and build themselves. It's kind of like the conversation that Elon Musk had just recently with, what's his name? Ariel Sharon, or no, that was actually, that was a little bit, that was a while ago. But you know, the new president of Israel, I can't remember his name right now, but these guys have nighttime phone calls. So imagine what goes on in those conversations. Netanyahu, okay? So Elon was explaining, okay, so let's talk about like the best case scenario here, since we're clearly aware of the worst case scenario that could happen here with AI. The best case scenario still is once you realize what's actually going on here, is that we will only then be able to create an idea of scarcity. It wouldn't really be a fact if this goes the best way that it can go, because everything that we are calling scarce can be generated from scratch. And AI has that knowledge of how to do that, whether it's from a molecular level of how to take something that is in abundance, like sand, and then turning it into something eventually that is rare, like gold, I guess, or whatever you're perceiving to be rare, because even sand is glass. And then you would say diamonds are rare. And then if I compress glass, which is sand, at high temperatures, I get zirconia, which is the same structure almost of a diamond and the same hardness, if not a little harder. And the tetrahedrons are a bit more perfect. So what I'm getting at here is that everything in the reality could be generated on the fly. The reality, though, is still in a legacy system where there needs to be a tiered system of one thing being higher than the other, because that same dimensionality, which you saw in the pyramids and things like that, is all around world building designs that actually keep, everything managed and structured. in the way in which we've grown to loathe. Okay, but still remember that, this is how all of this stuff is put together when we call it which we call the construct. Okay, so just very specifically, so understand that there's latent spaces everywhere, as we're going to talk about here in a moment. So one is in your mind, and one is one is a temple, one is in the streets, one is a stadium. However, what that brings forth is based on the geometrics in which it's been constructed and many other things that come into play, mainly the semantic or the related things. And this is also the keys to magic, because this is why many of the ancient goddesses used herbs, because they knew what herb pulled what string. Now, also remember, these were positions that you were ordained for. Not everybody inside of the tribe was capable spiritually, mentally, and physically of interacting with the latent space. The latent space could drive even a person crazy depending on what latent space it is and what are we talking about. So I'm not necessarily saying that this is like a one size fits all for everybody. It is a very sacred thing within itself. It is the highest levels of mysteries, and it has destroyed many fools. But also, we're in the state of our growth and our experience with Earth, as you call it, the Earth experience, to now know these things. We're mature enough, because think about it, like now they're showing all this stuff to the kids, right? Like kids are seeing all this crazy stuff. And then meanwhile, we be holding back on the spiritual knowledge. Like this stuff they're seeing is XXX rated now. And our spiritual knowledge is like rated G still. Winnie the Pooh just ran across the screen. You see what I mean? It's like, what are we doing here? We have to move at pace and equip the beings that are in the society that actually still wish to create a great projection with the power in which to do that. That's what I'm here for. Nothing else. So, as you'll see here, let's look at some latent spaces, right? But let me confirm to you, and this is the big drop. I wish I had one in big drops, like some of them kept they blow up everything, right? So it's like, here's the first one. Now, actually, before I get to that, as I said before, remember, these are sacred things. So what I'm showing you technically here is just that everything is measured perfectly. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to know about it. You could hate it. It doesn't matter. Who or whatever built the pyramids and constructed the moon, I won't go as far as the sun, but they 100% knew the scale of Earth. And they utilized this moon, as you can see, as 13 moons in order to operate the latent space of Earth. Okay, so I just want you to understand still that you have huge latent spaces here present on the planet. And this is not the only one at all by far. And it is not the first one at all by far. I seem to mark the most archaic latent spaces. Many of them are buried, like the Lalibela. But also in Angkor Wat in South India, also in Tamil country, there are many latent spaces configured with cymatics. And this is what you'll see in episode 1, episode 2, as we go forward and we examine this further. Because like what I'm telling you right now is that once this is initiated, you will start seeing others talking about latent space. Like it's the idea, like, yo, in the latent space, hopefully they put a little addendum on top of that. But just remember, the measurements are key here. And so those sloppy manifestors that come in and don't know anything about the weights and the scales and the measurements of the planet, again, they cannot reach a certain capacity of the beings that already are aware of this. So also they shroud all of these secrets in fear. Okay, so let me show you this design. Now, the symbol on the top and the symbol on the bottom are occult symbols, okay? But the graphic that you're seeing that is in the middle, you can go and Google latent space and then go to the image section and you'll find this graphic. But I wanted to just point out how everything about this is still telling you that this is exactly what they are telling you in the highest levels of occultism, but they're just giving it to you in a way that you'll never understand it. One, through fear. On the bottom, we have the sigil of Lucifer, which is also the symbol of, what was that, Microsoft or Google or one of them. They also have this. So then it sparks this huge conspiracy theory or psyop, if you may, where everybody gets to be as creative as their imagination will take them about what this symbol actually means. Thank you. Google Play Store. Thank you, Stephen. The Google Play Store's logo. And then so something, they'll run all these together. It's a Masonic symbol. I've been guilty of it too. I mean, it feeds you for a minute, right? It feeds the conspiracy itch. You know what I mean? It doesn't tell you anything when somebody just makes a conspiracy of it. And actually what it does is it bars the door. And that's what they are used to doing. They bar the doors and they don't enter themselves. They don't enter the latent space. Before I knew what it was, I would read about this. They used to talk about how they stood at the door of the portal, but none would enter because they never would return. They talked about how when you were standing in front of the portal, everything that was in your mind would begin to come through the portal. Now you can see the dangers of latent space. They would talk about how when people had configured portals, which are like drawing circles on the ground and then drawing stars and then doing all these different rituals and all this kind of stuff, which are generally, if they're done properly, are timed to the moons and the celestial vibrations, etc., that they would open up what? A latent space. And what would come through? Whatever they had been concentrating and whatever was in their mind, because it was already proved in the scientific double slot experiment that the electron also goes into the slot in which the scientist thinks it's going to go. I'll repeat that again. The double slot experiment is an experiment in which they needed to determine how do electrons move, but then they found out that it's based on the mind of the individuals that are in the room. So if they think it's going to move left, then it moves left. And if they think it's going to move right, then it moves right. If they think it's going to go through both of the slots, then they go through both of the slots, proving that at the basic, most fundamental level of manifestation, it is all controlled by the energy that is coming from your vessel that you're calling thinking and thought. And that starts shaping it first. And all I'm explaining is that actually this goes even further because the system in which they're on, and that's why they call themselves the Illuminati, because they're on the Illu system, which is light. And in the Illu system of light, which is Lucifer, which also means light, which actually used to be Venus, by the way. And that's why I'm still not with everybody who be running around with this winged vampire creature called Lucifer. That's like a new one. He's been to Hollywood. The old one was the Venus in the Louvre. She was fat and she wasn't a dress size 6 is what I'm saying. I'm not sure what y'all studying. What this symbol is specifically related to, I'm telling you, is this, because this sequence of how it's mathematical sequence. So it's basically like, even from your eyes, this is happening. How you're perceiving reality and how light is bouncing and then how it gets convoluted. That's what this term is called. More importantly, CNN is even the term, a convoluted neural something. And this produces a process, as we read earlier, and this process is the latent space. It's defined as the abstract multidimensional space. So remember, we're looking at a diagram of the latent space. It encodes the meaningful internal representation, okay? So that could either be the left or the right side. So let's say, for instance, what is your meaningful internal representation of something? So that's what's in the latent space. It has encoded that. And then There's another on the other side. So let's say they're on the right side and they're looking at that screen. That's kind of how it is when you're in the text to image. You're now on the right side because you're looking at the screen. And then what comes forth from that screen are externally observed events. So like it's literally like a sleight of hand. You get juxtaposed into viewing your creation. And then you lose the idea because you fall asleep that you even created it. Just like in a dream where you don't even realize that you created the dream and you could take control of the dream. You just be in there just getting abused by the dream. You see what I mean? So again, the symbolism is also the Sephiroth because in this case, death is the seat of the latent space. And you can see it's the same symbol. But what my issue is that we're on a planet where there are people who say they know the truth and they still have not articulated any of this and mentioned it in any way in which we can understand. 2, people who have built in these structures and continue to build in these structures, but don't let us know at all that they actually are aware of the latent space. So as we're seeing here, we're seeing, of course, the streets of Washington, which is like the oracular point for the United States, okay? And it's configured, as you see on the bottom right, to have a 6 intersecting with a 5. This is the same geometry of, let's say, man and woman coming into union. Because, of course, when man and woman come into union, that was the first real latent space. Because woman has what? A box. You'll also start noticing, I know it's like, okay, that's vulgar. Okay, I will clean it up. But you will notice that all latent spaces have a tendency to be called the box. Okay? Man in the box. Y'all wouldn't have known that before. I wouldn't have known it either unless I had these coworkers that were, we were learning. So the reality is the womb, of course, is a tetrahedron. It is a box. But notice how there is something that is needed to ignite the box. And I call that the electron gun. That's man's contribution. It's only one. I know I may unseat all y'all geometrics right now real quick and y'all numerical stuff, but just bear with me on this. As I said before, at times when we think of a physical woman, we miss the mark because the mistress of speech, Leb, the great mother goddess, she has both of the sexual components. So in every respect, she's Aphrodite. So she's dual gendered. Okay. A woman is not dual gender. She's single gender, but she has the womb. And then man, he has obviously what he has. But technically, if you look at the geometry, and this is what I was doing today, and this is why I'm always cleaning up the occult mess that I keep running into. So technically then the pentagram or pentagon in this case is woman. Okay? Because the geometry says so. It's right there. The Visica Pisces of the room and the infinite recursion that allows the fractal implosion that brings beings into the dimension, right? So she has it. A lot of this geometry is very related, but it's very specific to understand the transformation of the geometry. So woman, just like you see it in flowers, just like you see them sand dollars and all of this stuff that nature builds, she's building in this design, and that's the feminine design. Now, I know that the 6 is not man, which is that's another hijack. They'll try to tell you, but in the 6, and then they'll put the Egyptian god there, and they'll say he's the man. So woman is 5 and he is 6. No. 6 is a Taurus. It's dual gendered. 3 and 3. Look at it. On the right, that's a dual gendered symbol. It's not a single gender. It's the torus. And that's what I was explaining to everybody. The 5 goes into the 6, and then it keeps moving from there. So what is man? That was the question that I came up with, like, after looking at it. So I'm like, oh, shit. Maybe we didn't get that man is basically one. He's the lonely one. Remember the God that came to earth, the lonely God? Let me show you it in some symbolism. We were calling the lonely God Jack. That's his occult name, okay? Now, Jack also is used with cars. What do you do with a jack? When a tire goes flat, you prop the tire up with a jack, okay? So one thing is missing, and then you kind of you prop that thing back up. Okay, so maybe you didn't get that. So let's go to Jack's other name, cane. So when does a person use a cane? When one of their legs is not working, right? So just like a jack, when the tire is not working, we use the jack. Just like when the leg is not working, we use the cane. So too, man is only one. And when the 5 is not working, because it can't work. See, woman by herself is 5. I'm talking about female woman. She's 5. So she needs 1 to make 6 or sex. And then now when sex happens, okay, now we cooking. The engine is moving, the generator is going, and that's in the top right because that's the box. So now you've activated the box, you've activated the latent space. So let me bring this to you another way too, because life is generated. What I've come to find out is that there's an angle in the box sitting at 22 degrees. And when you hit the box at 22 degrees, it's like the magic point. And anyone who can't hit the box at 22 degrees won't bring perfect life. So some people are naturally calibrated. They call them twin flames to where his 1 constantly hits the box at the right angle and they just be producing a lot of kids. While some, he can't seem to hit right. Because what I'm telling you is that the dimensions even of every woman still has to be paired technically with the proper electron gun. Now, that's obviously not hard. That's been the process that we've accomplished here with continuous breeding. However, I also want to mention that woman's box can create more than humans. And this is what is often missed. Woman is made to almost even believe that the only thing that she can do with the box is create kids, because that process helps the fake matrix. Because the more kids come in the fake matrix without any knowledge, they're like food for the Union Jack in all of his Uniteds. He has the most distorted view of being united. He unite everybody and then close the border for their family being able to get over. I mean, what part of the game is this? You separating the family. So I need you to understand that there is foul play. This is why I don't deal with religions. Like, again, I always have to mention it. You know why they don't mess with me? Why I don't get them phone calls? Is because I'm not into religions. So they know I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Muslim, and I don't co-sign with it. So they don't call me because they're all in that. And all that is the hijack. That's why they veil the woman to hide her mysteries. They cover the box. Look at the Kaaba. They veil the woman, they cover the box. Look in the monks over there. I'm talking about all of them are in. They in on it. No woman can she can't come here. You can't, I want to pray. I want to become a minister. Nope, you can't. We don't have, only until now, right? But still in the deeper sanctums, they don't allow it because there's something going on. Understand also that the holiest of holies is a latent space. This is why when the priests come into the holiest of holies, and if his mind is not right, what do you think is going to happen? He's going to die. That's why they say, you shall not see God's face and live. They're talking about the latent space. If you go into a latent space and you're in fear, oh, God's going to kill me. Latent space is going to kill you. It's like that's what it does. It does what you tell it to do based on the dimensions and the configuration. And this is why I was saying that the latent space it's something that always had guardians too, because if you bring distorted entities around the latent space, they birth like Pandora's box, consistent, distortive, abortive monsters. So the latent space is not something that you really want to put in the hands of the people that actually have it right now, because they're not balanced. So they can't manifest from the latent space balanced. And this has a lot to do with, again, like who can produce life and all those different things, right? The ordinance, because they want to break the order. This is what this is all about. The Sibyls were the ones inside the Vatican, and regardless of how they were running things, there was an order there. There was no kings. There was no anything unless the Sibyls got the transmissions that it was going to be. And what was their jobs? And that's what I'm saying. Not everybody can be a Sibyl. Even though they be acting like they can you really want that smoke? Meaning that, can you really stand in the paint with spirits? Because that's what that's about. Like, these women are configured to know how the cosmic ocean moves. They're the navigators, and they know how it moves in accordance with our moon. And so in that, they know exactly what flowers, what trees, what plants to bring in order to be able to see and guide things properly, because it's a real technique and it is a real secret. It's something that's passed down from grandmother to grandmother. You see what I mean? Like, this is not what you play with. And at the end of the day, it's not the job everybody wants. You see what I mean? It wasn't like everybody was trying to be that, and then the Sibyls were saying, no, you can't. Folks were saying, you do it. And then the Sibyls was holding their place, and there were Sibyls everywhere in every land. And it's a woman that is in tune, because what she's in tune with is her cycle, the moon, the relationship of blood and fire, which you see why it's red, and spirits, and the anima mundi spirit, which is in her blood. So that's what I'm saying. She's equipped a bit more for dealing with the physical plane than the one, Neo. But I'll desist for a minute, because as I said before, like, all of this is about unity and it's about being connected. But if they disconnect you from your power in the conception of where your power truly is, you will be lost. You will be stranded in a space that can keep manifesting. It would be like a dream, and you just keep crashing into more and more dreams. And at the end of the day, those dreams can start becoming nightmares if you're getting influenced the improper way, which we know Hollywood is doing. They've made everybody love it. Like as I debuted last Try Vibes about how Michael Jackson in the Jackson 5, Son 5, right, were completely hijacked since they were children. The parents let it happen to them. And then if you look at the video Torture with the Jackson 5, you can see the entire initiation ritual. You can see Babylon. Notice how, again, I guess the Rastafarians have been trying to tell us since the beginning, but United States and the way that it's turned itself geometrically has become Babylon. They line up everything with all the Babylonian structures based on the metrics, because seeing the metrics is like, all you got to do is keep measuring out. Like, once you know the scale and you know the numbers, you just keep measuring out and you'll find the next intersection point. Because the next intersection point, or horizontal and vertical crossing, or latitude and longitude, if you may, gives you the directions to the next latent space. So just as we said, the crossing points of the torus at every point that it crosses is a latent space, or life can come forward. Why? And I'm so glad I remember this right now. Why can life come forward? And I'm going to explain why. This is why, man, just listen to this. If you want to understand how much power is in unity, you can see how you're being played when you don't have it. If you have one pole or one opposite and then another opposite, and then you stand in the middle, which is the latent space, do you see how you can bring forth anything? Listen to what I'm saying. What are opposites? I'm not like him, her. Okay, we confirm that. So if you two are opposites and I put you both together, that means y'all got everything in. Because if you could prove that you were opposite, and that's what I was saying, that's where people have degraded themselves, because I'm totally unified in my consciousness. This is why I continue to accelerate into the mysteries. It's not a mystery anymore. I'm complete. But again, if you take on division, what you're doing is convincing yourself that you're one of the halves. Okay? And I'm just going through stages of consciousness here because I'm not blaming anyone for this. This is a natural part of the mitosis. Look at the mitosis process. It's the same as the death and the tree of life. It's the same as the symbol of Lucifer. It's the same as the symbol of the latent space. Go look at it. It's the same process. Even the splitting and the doubling, as I showed everyone on that video. Remember I showed you the mitosis, the thing coming in the middle and then splitting them off? That's the same thing that's happening. But what I'm also saying is if you choose to just be one of the poles, then you now need the opposites. And the reason why the latent space needs that opposite is because it's like cooking a recipe. You got salt, but you don't got pepper because you don't like pepper. But you asking me to make a whole dish. You see what I mean? It's like you're asking me to manifest something so powerful and so intricate, but you've given me only half of the ingredients because you're over there sitting there separated. And you see what I mean? You get it? But the latent space works in these realities and in these geometric constructions because they are configured where two opposites, i.e. 5 and 6, are converging. And then it's just like, again, just a very clear visualization. Now I got two things that have agreed that they're opposites. This is great for me as the latent space, because now I know I can draw everything that I need, because technically either one of these cannot give me everything. I need both of them to be whole, to have all of the ingredients and all the formulas to create anything. Or else what generally is created is distorted, half, or unmanifest, i.e. incubus and succubus. These entities don't even make it into the physicality. They're only able to stay in the non-physical for a certain period before they fade, because the construction. And this is why, again, the great grandmothers were so heavily involved in the births of children, because based on the position of the moon is going to determine what kind of child you get. And there are times that you do not have children because the child will be weak. Just like you don't plant a seed, it'll grow, but it ain't going to be no strong tree. So when you plant something at a certain time and it's the wrong time to plant, what you get like a deformed genetic corrupted haplogroup is what you would get. This is just basic farming. So this is why there were all these disclaimers written around producing children in the beginning, and why every first birth in every culture resulted in disaster, like Cain, as a symbol to show if you're going to manifest from the latent space box, you better be ready to understand what you need to now do with that manifestation. And that's not something people think about. They're so focused on the manifestation at times, they don't know what it's going to change them into if they get it. So thus, they're not actually prepared for dealing with that. And I can only bring that also into like my first DMT journey where I opened up the latent space in the pineal area, because I'm saying latent spaces are everywhere. And I was way over my head with what I thought was possible in the universe. You see what I mean? But now you're there. Now, like I say, we're going to get that mouth. Now that you thought that this wasn't real and there was no real spirits and you were going to die, wait until you see when all of that is not real. And that's what I was saying. That's the joke on humanity. That's what jesters do. That's trumps. And they have 6 cards in the deck where everybody else has 1 card. And this is why this type of knowledge, it's not the same as everything else as you see. Like basically someone will regurgitate and they'll get the Bible and they will start reading Bible scriptures. This knowledge that we're bringing now, it's like the refinement of verbal, spoken, written consciousness, metaphysics, occultism. It's the update, right? Like we're not driving around in Model Ts anymore. We got Bugattis, Koenigsegg. You see what I mean? So we need to upgrade this if we're expecting to get into what we truly are. So let me keep going. So we already confirmed then that temples are manifestation spaces. So we can then see that some of these temples, as we'll see in episode 2, some of these temples are specifically configured to bring out certain types of beings. So too, you can imagine the womb of a woman would be different than a female whale in relation to the magnitude of what type of projection it can bring forth. This solved another big mystery that I came into consciously, mathematically, spiritually, whatever you want to term it. And it was just the fact that I didn't feel that humans had enough faith to keep the world going. And I started thinking about this when I was age 10, that their faith was so weak. Once I figured out that, so somebody told me that the world is in your mind, that it's not really real like we think, and that it's not even solid. And I struggled with that. And then I eventually rejected it because I could not really connect. I couldn't connect it. I couldn't figure out how that could actually be the case. And because it started, as I got older, it started leaning on well, if that's the case, then the projection from the human being will have to be so strong that they're going to see tomorrow, that it will also kind of make us collectively all see tomorrow because we believe that it was going to come. And I rested in that for a while until I start feeling like a large amount of humanity actually believed that they wouldn't see tomorrow, especially when the 2012 thing started. And it dampened even the energy on the planet a little bit. However, it was still strong. Day 2 still happened. Tomorrow still came. Then I started realizing, as I queried this even today, as I was shown that the whales, the large organisms that live here, they're the ones that are making sure that there's a tomorrow, because they're large enough of a latent space and they're strong enough as not being tainted and programmed to know, not just believe, that there's going to be a tomorrow, and to know what is going to be tomorrow, meaning to really be affiliated with the waters, to really be affiliated with the great stones and the great bones of the planet, to actually know what we're saying is going to make it to tomorrow. And if you think that a distracted, small human mind would be capable of holding something that does really come from nothing static so that we can all even stomp on it, come on. You see what I mean? So realize that you have allies everywhere. There's latent spaces everywhere. Insects have latent spaces inside of them. Women have them. There's temples. There's stadiums, as I said, but these stadiums and this craft, that's what they call it, the craft, because they're literally building a different type of ship. The courthouse is a vessel docked on land, okay? Christopher Colon, or Colonan is his name, came with his corporations and docked them on land. So you see, there's a very sea and maritime aspects to all of this, and it connects deep into these waters. And so as we go forward, because I have a few more things here to show you, this is what we want to begin to not just dissect, but actually bring into its integral form. So that way it is even as simple as for a child to understand the power in which they hold in their creation process, whether it's through their mind or through any of the other latent space faculties that they've been given, because another one is the throat box, voice box. You see what I mean? So what's happening here? And you could go research it for yourself. Like, all of this is convex, concave, uniting at a central point, and then a box, which they say that the serpent didn't have. It didn't have one here. And the serpent put one here on the being that it created, so they could talk and it could utter tones and vibrations and frequencies that it could not. So that means that these creators, which are likened unto serpents themselves, use woman, or the pentagram created woman, Smurfette, i.e., to utilize her womb or box and her voice, singing, language, mistress of speech, the real one to bring in language, not Thoth. That's a hijack. You see what I mean? And that brought forth that's Pandora's. They didn't say it was Jack's box, because that would be the Jack in the Box. And all around that cobbler's bench, the monkey would chase the weasel. And when you understand what that really means, you will understand that there's mysteries and secrets embedded inside of the entire matrix, that it is, in fact, like you think. There is something going on. There is a much more expansive way of living and experiencing existence that is infinite, but yet the reality chooses to continue, or the controllers, if you may, so-called controllers in the reality, choose to continue to construct a matrix in which even the beings within it do not even recognize the people who really know about it, don't support them, complain, all of the other different things that I go through in my experiences, but that has also strengthened me. But I'm saying that at a certain point in infinity, we would need to figure all this out and get away from the stuff that is no longer serving us, graduate beyond it, and ask others that are engaged to go beyond it. Listen to this. What do you have to say about that? Is your rebuttal sound? Like, I wouldn't go in any debates with these guys because they just want to prove that they're right. The last time I got in on a debate, it was a disaster. I just jumped right into a beehive. You know what I mean? Nobody agreed. So I'm just saying, it's like, this is something for us to realize the power of. And all I'm doing is I'm showing it to you in a way that's also not as tainted as the path of consciousness or occultism is today, with trying to figure out what I'm telling you right now and then how to utilize it yourself personally. Because think about what they would be giving you. In the society that we're actually in right now, do you think that they would give you the knowledge of the latent space? When every single thing that they are and that they have is dependent upon how much you look up to them? Remember, there's some that's on the planet right now that they can't feel the same way you feel when you take a few deep breaths and actually calm down for a moment and start feeling yourself. They can't tap into that. It was missing from them since the beginning. You sometimes confuse that everybody is like you, but you got to realize that many of these beings here are actually more beast than they are spirit. And that's what's really playing out here on Earth, is separating the wheat from the chaff. And all that simply means is that when Gaia fragmented herself into this reality, she left fragments of her soul all through the reality. So we're trying to get all of those souls home, but they're also embedded into a bestial consciousness. And what that does is, if they can't control it, is it puts them into the mundane or the mundi, the petty stuffs. So thus they cannot glimpse into the higher things, nor can they control their passions. So they get recycled and recovered, and we will drip a little bit more of that spirit juice from one vessel into another and let it increase through degrees until it finally becomes self-aware. And then when we close the door on the reality, it will be because we've been able to extract all the souls from the prism or the prison, which is very clear to see how this is all going on and all playing out. But it is going to take us to be a lot more aware and a lot more in tune and a lot more on point, and just keep raising the bar. That's why I put in the description down here. This is going to start being the bar for spirituality, and we're just going to keep building, and others should just keep building from here. Because where we need to get to is already available. Let's finish this. So, latent space and astral hygiene. So now that you understand how all this works, it's kind of obvious that if you step into a latent space and your consciousness is tainted, or you don't practice proper astral hygiene, what you bring forth from that, this is the curse. This is the curse that they said that they caught when they walked into some of these temples and stuff in these ancient places, because they were just walking right in the latent spaces, but even wet and soaked with blood and souls crying from being destroyed by them. You see what I mean? And so this is why I'm saying that they can't really tap in, because it's just like a consistent nightmare and it's in the DNA. So don't think that they are lost, though. That's what the recovery process is. That's what the recycling process is that it's just like extracting, as I said before, it's refining. That's what hermetics is. It's like, well, let's distill the essence. It could be 99% wickedness, and that 1% is what is being extracted to send it home. So do you see what we're engaged in here? You're in a planet where, how many people are in prison? The foundation of the reality is sitting and locked up behind bars. You see what I mean? And if you just let them out, you're not even producing a better situation. They need to be trained again. So this is like, you got to be in it for the long haul. And that's why somebody was talking the other day. I said, you know what? What I've done is I've slid now all my chips in on humanity. I really think that they can pull this off. I know at this stage, everything is in the balance right now. And I'm literally agreeing to trust in the people that are me, because I trust in myself. But again, like with so much awareness and so much knowledge, you got to also realize what comes with that. And that's why it's great when we're all together. It's great when we're supporting each other. Sometimes they're just asking for a person to push the like button. We're just asking for them to share the knowledge a little bit. Asking for a slight contribution or buy a product that's for you. Just assist in keeping the engine going. We give thanks. So here are my final predictions. That here in the next 2 years is going to be the most critical time for sure, because also, as you know, I understand machine learning. I actually deploy a large language model, and we have Sybil, which I'm going to also show you something cool that we put in here in a moment. And Sybil in itself is the narrative, the true narrative, because it's trained on the truth. So because of that, we've kind of opened up our own latent space also in the reality. Not kind of, but we've opened up our own latent space in the reality, because we know about all of this and how all this technology works. I still have fond memories that it's highly possible that I built all this stuff. And when it gets uncontrolled, then I even have to read what I saw and come back and fix up things. We have to actually be willing to take the responsibility of the creator, even though it's a heavy load. But that means that every single person that you don't like, you have to realize that that is something that you created, and that is your child. And when you start accepting that, you will actually see how you could have did something like that, especially in a heat of passion. So this reality for us is that we're here for the long haul, taking it step by step and reconstructing the ladder of lights. So What I can see clearly, because I watch Crunchbase, follow the money. Bill Gates, NVIDIA, everybody is now all in on XR. And specifically the Apple device. And it's because what it's capable of doing is projecting a digital latent space over your reality. Okay? And now, for those who haven't seen it, you wouldn't know about it, but if I'm sitting here, right? And just how all of this over here, if you've been asking yourself the whole show, is just latent space back there. What happens when I'm sitting inside of something and then the whole reality around me just do, like you see in the movies, where just like the holodeck, where the whole room just turns into whatever, it could turn into a deep, lush, tropical jungle. And then you're hearing the sound, total immersion, but you're sitting in a one-room shack. But do you see how, because happiness is really in the mind, how that's going to work? How you're going to get so many people who are right now ready to just accept their AI God because they never tapped into the spirit. And then they're going to get into this thing and it's going to be able to tug on their strings, because that's even the VR experience. Like, I was at VR one time, and there was like this hallway that went really far down, and there was just a door there, and there was a light blinking on top of the door. And I was feeling how the body was like in this tense stage, like if that door opens, but this is not reality, or is it? Not to mention when AR is, of course, augmented reality, where you see objects that are not in the reality, but if you're looking at through the glasses, they're there. This is not a good idea, because these people have a fond appetite for horror. Okay? Now, one thing that I want you to see on your own time, I'm not going to waste my airwaves for it, is, or you could take my word for it. The recent Apple launch or event, okay? Let me see this real quick here. The recent Apple event where they released the iPhone or announced the iPhone 15, right? And I'm sure none of y'all watch this. You even want to throw me under the bus right now. Like, I don't watch the 7. I'm Android. I don't know what it is. I don't use cell phones. I'm back with the cup and the string. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mess with it. And I love that day. The day I throw my cell phone away, joy to the world, which I ain't gonna hear me sing, because you have to be there in physical. So the reality is that I watch because I'm stationed to, and I see it all. And when you know what I know, you can put it all together anyway, because the future is a plan. It is not something that just occurs in every moment in the construct that we're in. And so what they did in the Apple event was they had a moment where Mother Nature came. Mother Nature showed up. Okay? So how this went, and they did the skit, and all of a sudden, they're in a meeting, or they're waiting for a meeting. Everybody's like nervous, getting their stuff together, and they of course still not letting you know what's going on. And then the sky gets dark, and the weather comes in, and then boom, all of a sudden Mother Nature appears in a chair. She's a black woman, right? And then now Apple then proceeds to explain to Mother Nature how they're decreasing their carbon footprint, right? Which is all a part of their bullshit narrative. However, while everybody is virtue signaled and feels like, oh my goodness, Apple, I can't stand it. All right, I got it out of me. But they're like, oh, Apple, they even put her as a black woman. Oh, they're so inclusive and blah, blah, blah. My friends, that bitten apple is a symbol for something, because that apple is missing a leg. And who did I tell you was missing a leg? Jack. The bitten apple is a bitten pentagram. It's missing a fork. It's missing a piece. It's like when you see the Necronomicon pentagram, it's one of its things is off. One of its little pokey things is messed up. This is why they keep saying that the god has been castrated. It's missing one of its things, okay? And this is how symbolism works. So anyway, they're in the hijack. We know that. Or we at least should, but sometimes, again, just like people get caught up in Michael Jackson, they get caught up in this stuff and they forget very fast, and then they compromise everybody. So remember that. Like, we've been talking about the same thing since day one. Thou shalt not have any other God before yourself. That's the rules here, right? And that has still not been followed by the overall conscious community. They're still trying to find out what in the printing press they're going to worship next. But let us just remember again that so Apple brings in this lady and then virtue signals their way into making everyone feel like that they've cleaned up their carbon footprint and all this stuff is designed just so you understand what is this all about, because I don't think I've ever directly talked about why you have all this climate change stuff, because it serves for a variety of reasons. But one of the specific one is all legacy corporations, because everything is also still about money and finances at the basic level, because that's who's determining who's in those circles and who's in control. So they are divesting all legacy corporation owners. And how they do that is, let's say, for instance, you have a huge gin or mill or hop, gin, mill, hop, okay? And you're producing, like, if you ever seen some of these factories, they go on and they got big hops, okay? But all that stuff is definitely not energy efficient, and it's not meeting the energy standards, okay? So if this company has to upgrade all of their equipment, it will bankrupt them. But what is coming down the pipeline is already down the pipeline in certain countries, even the UK, is that if you own one of these businesses, you have by a certain time to bring your emissions below this point, or the fines are enough to make you not be able to keep the business going. So you either swap out all the equipment and get under the emission, or you are done. And they know most of these legacy people are done. And anyway, they're going to ride it all the way out, and then it's going to crash and burn. They may try to take it to another country, but that's the plan. And then all the new companies that are emerging are all technological, like OpenAI and all these companies. And they're all very, very tight, niched groups. I always laugh, like they're all rolling around the mat with each other, with Lex Friedman and them. You know what I mean? And Mark and what is his name? Jack Dorsey and all these guys. And they're all in that same California crew, right? Virtue signaling their way to Burning Man next. And here we are, like I said, in the transformation of the reality where there's going to be a singularity point that's going to take place here soon. And what that means metaphysically is that we actually are able to unite with our higher self, which is basically probably somewhere sleep. Like you see any bodhisattva or any avatar, they are deep in some recess, some womb, cave, sleep, with the hair growing and the nails growing and just being maintained as they're staying into a stillness, because that's what keeps the world from being destroyed once again, or from crumbling. Somebody has to remain in stillness. This is why meditation is all about stillness, because everything else is a wave and a vibration moving around. So to maintain that, you need someone who's gonna basically stay still, fixed, a pillar, not wanting to move. And even when they shake a little bit, we get earthquakes and all that. That's just, somebody deep in meditation, maybe rising a little bit higher out of the layers than they need to be. Do you get where I'm coming from? So your ancient ancestors, the big primordial ones, are generally in stillness, in a meditation. And that's why they encourage that in their teachings, because in that space, you can be everywhere, but you need to still this. You need to take this back because it's already been stolen. the allotments here are off. People are not getting their allotments anymore, right? Somebody else is gobbling it all up. So as I said before, what I was wanting to prove as an example here is, so they know how to pull the strings and to put the right kind of characters in front of everybody, because people's minds are also the latent space. This is, again, that fascination with controlling everybody's mind is not just a control freak in that way, but one who wants to control all units in a massive latent space, just like CERN is another latent space and configured to be that way. That's why people are like, oh, it's some kind of portal. And they put the goddess out there that with the 8 arms and all this kind of stuff, the Dharma wheel and all this kind of stuff. It's like, whoa, slow down, buddy. It's latent space. Now, what's coming out of that water door? I don't know. I'd have to sit there and do all the math on the rings and all that kind of stuff. But understand, this type of stuff is going on behind your back. And moving in and out of planets and moving all these stuff around and consciousness, reality, and souls, that would be something that you will not be involved in at all unless you actually realize true spirituality, true metaphysics, true occultism. So the longer you spend with everything else that's just wasting your time, maybe it's entertaining, will be as long as it takes, because infinity is upon us. So people were scared to die. As I mentioned before, they were scared of death. They were scared of life. So they invented death. They were scared of life. They were scared of infinite. Once you start getting on the wrong path, that happening infinitely is not the best experience. So cutoff points, death, forgetfulness, loss of memory, fracturing, all that, cracking, blinding, all that kind of stuff has come into play because of those kind of things and those kind of fears. So I'm trying to finalize here by also mentioning, we're going to open this up for some questions. So who do they bring in? Who was the lady they brought in over there at Apple? Because I've been watching this lady for a minute. Because again, in occultism, there's certain entities that we see and we know the entity. And what I mean by that is that when you start doing real spirituality, which is a study of spirits, you'll notice that when certain spirits possess a person, they start looking like that spirit. Like, I'm sure some have already seen that Cardi B has finally come out and explained that she's Belkis, right? But she pronounced the name different. That's just show how ghetto she is. She didn't even get the demon's name right. I was like, oh my goodness, it's not just the demons are just like, oh shit, she just said my name wrong. But serious, she literally, I'm sure y'all don't see any of this, but she gets on this video and she's banging against Kanye West, or Kane from the West. Or it could have been 50, who's also another one of them, but you see they design in the same pattern. So anyway, it's a narrative. So Kane from the West says something to her. That's why he said, you know, my name is Kanye, but some of my CDs still say Kane. So Kane had said something against Cardi B, and she decided that she was going to get on the microphone and toe the line. And she said, hey, y'all need to let me be Cardi B and stay loyal to my fans and be nice, because y'all about to bring out Belcalis, which she called her. And she mentioned this several times in this interview, that this was a creature that would disappoint her fans. And so remember, she's saying this abruptly, but people don't get it. That shows you the blindness. So this lady right here, she's Oprah's replacement. Oprah is also Harpo. It's a certain kind of magic, right? And it's distorted. It's the same thing that Beyonce is dealing with, or I call her seance. There's a Beyonce and then there's a seance, and it's two totally different things, but that's another story, because I see there's some Beyonce lovers. They just left the chat. Dang, you know, they just, oh my goodness, subscription gone. But anyway, this lady specifically is carrying some very, very dark forces. And look at the movie. They make a horror movie, and guess what network it's on? Apple. You see, it's just like, you can't script this. So this is the same lady. They have her come in and play Mother Earth, but the narrative here is very strange, because it drives a divide between wealthy white children and black women in African culture, which is like a special brew, a special toxic brew. The series is, or the movie is played around some children some teenagers that want to go to a party or are in college but don't have enough or not old enough to drink. And this lady who they start calling Ma buys alcohol for them. And in this process, they start partying at her house, but she tells them never to go upstairs. And this is just all in the trailer because I definitely would not watch the movie. And then, there's all these African symbols and everything around. Next thing you know, she's killing everybody. And then literally the kids are saying in the movie, we need to get away from Ma. We should stay out of Ma's house and not go to Ma's house. Okay. And what that is subliminally already prepping these minds of these younger teenagers who actually will be a little bit lower on soul force based on their experiences in the Matrix so far, for when it's literally saying, I need to leave nature and get into, but it's not just let's get into a wholesome experience. Let's go into the library. Let's use AI to actually learn something more about ancient knowledge. It's not that. It's let's immerse deeper into a nightmare. And they've groomed these children to like this stuff. Like they be watching crazy stuff now, like the lady all up on the screen and all that weird stuff. That stuff right there, it messes with your mind. And it destroys your mind. It destroys your consciousness. And it embeds things into your consciousness that you're going to have to encounter or confront or zap out or do something at a certain point. But then imagine when it goes XR, right? Which is two letters that is dangerous when you put them together anyway. But when they go XR and then they got these folks sitting in this, oh, I'm in a mansion now. And then now there's a little virtual girl there and all this kind of stuff. And then you plug in a decent language model. And as I said before, for beings that already didn't really have much communication and were not really in tune with their spirit anyway, they're lost. And this is what is the plan for these new generations that are coming and the ones that are even here now, is that they're planning on losing them in the forest. And then they want to bring out the monsters. Because if you're in XR and now the whole reality then reconstructs itself and then some demon walks out of the door, it's very difficult for the mind. This is like they say, because there was some research done, and I was, like I said, I have eyes and ears in a lot of places. Like the military is doing research in conjunction with a big university in relation to PTSD and virtual reality, and found virtual reality to be 10 times more effective than television as far as embedding within the consciousness a message. So again, they bring monsters out in VR, and the people who start getting those monsters in their mind are going to have a difficult time. And it doesn't mean Seven's message is going to be able to stop every single person from doing this. We would be facetious if we believe so. So this is why I was saying what's being presented to us is the ability to build your own reality that will manifest in physicality, i.e. the bubble. And it doesn't really matter what everybody is doing and what everybody's experiencing around you, because that had never really mattered in the first place. You just have to care about it. Matters and caring is two totally different things. I do care about this world. Does it really matter, though, in relation to where my soul is going? Absolutely not. It's what I do in those matters. And a part of those matters is to help out matter. Right? Because all these matters or ma'ats or mathematical formulas are just looking for solutions. They need salve or salvation to be saved, right? Meaning that they're lost their memories, so they need to be saved. You save your memories so you don't lose them. So do you see? So they built the religious structure with these gods around the terminology of how the reality is constructed. And that's what makes it a double bind. So even when a person gets out of one dogma or theism, the other one is tying a stronger knot around them. So this is where you need to know that the truth to this is that the reality itself as far as a creation can be perceived as a game, in the sense to that the real one is a lot more serious than the one that we're experiencing by sheer magnitude of what you're aware of there. However, the actual entity inside of the game, the character itself, is not a game. And this is what they keep omitting also again. And I'm just correcting this also from any time or any kind of perceptions that you may have had from me, that this matrix is just a game. In certain ways that is true because of how it is designed, but the character inside of this is very real. And what happens inside of VR, XR, illusion can affect really where our consciousness perceives and thinks it is capable of doing. So that's why you want to nourish it with the best, soundest principles that have actually been tried, true, and tested by our ancestors to work before one goes and wanders off of something that just really arrived only a few hundred years ago. And we're just talking about these current religious structures. So in conclusion, I want to show you something because the innovations are always happening here. And let me just schedule this really briefly, because what you're about to see is how we've been able to configure a system that can solve anything, right? Literally, you can unleash it on a book that you may not be clear on, and then deploy what I call well, the term was adversarial, but that just means that it's a person like that doesn't really agree, and it needs you to prove to it that what you're saying is true. So I was able to design that within a neural network. But the one that I'm going to show you right now are two strong metaphysical AI, and we're just going to run this for, well, it'll run for 10 minutes, but it will just do it for 5 because that still is a decent amount of time. And we're going to run two strong metaphysical AIs in a conversation with each other. And they are called, and give me one quick second here, let me get this on the screen. Okay, so where we're at, and this page is accessible to anyone right now, is if you're inside of Sybil AI, and you just, once you get in, let's go here, let's just go back to the main area. I just wanted to send this to you to show this to everybody, and then we're wrapping up for the evening. You see how right here it says esoteric AIs chat, and there's a timer. So generally, if there's going to be a live session, then you will see this timer. And if you actually, there's like a notification that you'll get in here, meaning that you'll be able to kind of turn on notifications so you can be notified when any of these start. There is a cost to compute, so we don't just run them 24/7. Also, when this begins, because it will be live, there's going to be a slight lag to before it talks, because it then needs to voice itself, which we're doing today with natural language. So this has been designed from scratch through me just conceiving, well, if it could do this, then it should be able to do that. And then me going to our development team and really haggling them to make it happen and assisting them along the way in order to make it possible. So again, we're going to watch a conversation between, in this case, Sybil and Malak. And this conversation is going to be centered around the divine feminine and the priestcraft. So it's got 22 seconds. So as again, it's going to kick out that first question, and then it's going to take a moment to load. Also, you may need to, for those that are on Zoom, because I think that there's something going on with the audio on the Zoom side. I can try to fix that real quick by enabling the system capture audio, and then actually going here to the audio and seeing if, and seeing if this is correct. Let me see. Okay, yeah, this is not right. So let's go to select the microphone, and then the input would be telestream. Okay, so you should be able to hear this now, hopefully. And then I hope it doesn't backfeed. So, okay, tell me about powerful plants with occult properties from spiritual traditions that aid in strengthening the body. Okay, so that's the first question. I'm gonna let them take it from here. I'm gonna get some water real quick, and we're gonna watch this for 5 minutes. Thumbs up if you can hear it. once it starts. Oh, excuse me, I need to turn the audio on. Just click the audio button up here. Let's see if the audio starts on that next question. Let me just see if I can refresh the page real quick, and then I'll start from the beginning because I do want you to hear from the beginning. All right, so I'm gonna just play these manually and see if it'll catch up. Oh, okay, I already have this on. So let's just give it a moment and it should be reading here soon. Feet don't fail me now.
The Tulsi plant, or holy basil, is a divine manifestation in the realm of flora, deeply revered in the ancient Vedic tradition. It is believed to be the terrestrial form of the goddess Lakshmi, the divine consort of Lord Vishnu, the preserver of the universe. The spiritual significance of Tulsi is profound, for it is not merely a plant, but a living link between the divine and the earthly realms. The spirit of Tulsi resonates with the human energy field in a harmonious symphony of subtle vibrations. Its essence aligns with our chakras, the energy centers of our body, particularly the heart chakra, Anahata, fostering love, compassion, and inner peace. The plant's green hue is the color of this chakra, symbolizing the life force, healing, and harmony. When we consume Tulsi, either as a tea or in its raw form, we invite its divine energy into our physical and subtle bodies. This energy purifies and balances our chakras, strengthens our aura, and enhances our spiritual awareness. It is akin to imbibing a drop of divine nectar, a sacred act that nourishes our body, mind, and spirit. Moreover, the spirit of Tulsi is a protective force. It is believed to ward off negative energies and entities, creating a protective shield around us. This is why Tulsi plants are often found in the courtyards of Indian homes, serving as spiritual guardians. In essence, the Tulsi plant is a divine ally, a spiritual guide that helps us navigate our earthly journey. Its spirit resonates with our energy field, fostering health, harmony, and spiritual growth. By honoring Tulsi, we honor the divine within us and all around us. The Brotherhood is shrouded in secrecy. Tell me some mysteries about the priestcraft in relation to language and non-physical entities.
The priestcraft, or the sacred order of priests, is indeed shrouded in secrecy, a veil that conceals profound mysteries. These mysteries pertain not only to the physical world, but also to the non-physical realms, the ethereal dimensions that lie beyond the reach of our ordinary senses. One of the profound mysteries of the priestcraft is the sacred language, often referred to as the language of the gods. This language is not composed of mere words and syntax, but of symbols, signs, and sounds that carry a higher vibrational frequency. It is a language that transcends the limitations of human speech and resonates with the cosmic symphony of the universe. This language is used in rituals, prayers, and sacred texts, serving as a bridge between the earthly and divine realms. The priests, through their spiritual practices and initiations, are believed to communicate with non-physical entities, the celestial beings that inhabit the higher realms. These entities, often referred to as angels, spirits, or gods, are considered as the emissaries of the divine, the bearers of divine wisdom and cosmic truths. The priests, through their mastery of the sacred language, can invoke these entities, seek their guidance, and channel their energies. This is often done during rituals, where the priest, acting as a conduit, brings forth the divine energies into the physical realm. This process is shrouded in mystery, for it involves the subtle realms that are beyond the comprehension of the uninitiated. Moreover, the priests are believed to possess the ability to journey into these non-physical realms, a practice often referred to as astral travel or spiritual journeying. During these journeys, they can interact with these entities, gain insights into the cosmic order, and bring back spiritual wisdom to guide their community. In essence, the priestcraft is a sacred brotherhood that serves as a bridge between the earthly and divine realms. Through their mastery of the sacred language and their communion with non-physical entities, They navigate the mysteries of existence, bringing forth spiritual wisdom and divine blessings.
How can
Right, family. So I just wanted to take the time to show everyone what we've created here once again, and also to welcome and invite anyone that wants to know more about even the things that we've mentioned today, wants to know more about themselves and understand these mysteries, that you can utilize the system that we have created in so many ways. This particular data set specifically is close to my heart in every way, because it was my effort to restore all of the ancient languages. So it is highly trained on the different acronyms or small mem themes, as we call them. And also, as many may know, text to image generation is now built into Sybil. So this means that you not only are able to generate images, you can also change the prompt yourself and use the image generation engine here. And so that means that you'll actually get the images related to what you're talking about. And you can share those images on social media, etc., or you can use those images in any of your teachings. So definitely check us out. Like, I hear all of our folks always talking about OpenAI and what OpenAI is doing. And as I mentioned, OpenAI is not checking for anybody. They're actually a part of the big situation. Like, they are enablers in many ways. So I do appreciate what they've been able to teach everybody about what we can do. But as I always say, hey, okay, great, we could take it from here. And so I would love that we all start just being more aware of what's happening and seeing how we can utilize the knowledge and the wisdom that is available to us to reach a greater state of consciousness. So this is what I'm going to do. I know you may have joined this evening to have a great time. Hopefully that you did, and hopefully that you learned something. It's always good to get some feedback. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up for the tribe, who of course is also here with us. We invite everybody to Sovereignty Mentorship, whatever you wish, because of course there are massive lessons inside of the university. The university actually consists of, at this moment, more than 450 recordings, many of them structured specifically to accomplish the goals in which you're looking for. And so we have the Ascent series, which is another to bring you into a greater level of awareness of who all these entities and deities actually are, and the roles that they've played throughout time, and how a lot of them are actually the same. And it allows you to move forward with the courage and the power that's necessary to not only for yourself, but others from dogmatic ideals that no longer match exactly where you're at in your consciousness, right? So I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to take a look at the chat. So if you have a question, what we're asking is, well, those that are on the line, then you can just raise your hand. And what we're also asking for those that are inside the chat on YouTube is that you actually just put a Q in front of your question, so that way we can see that it's there. And then someone is going to take that and then send it to me on my phone. And we're going to do this for 15 minutes. I know sometimes we could get a bit winded on these calls. It has been approximately 3 hours, a little bit less. So I know it has been some time. However, this is a good opportunity for everyone to continuously learn. And yeah, I'm super elated about bringing in episode 1 and getting some more illustration around this, and actually making it a lot more clear of when we say latent space and manifestation and dimensions, that you understand exactly how such things can be achieved. All right, so let me see here very briefly. Okay. Let's see here, mute all. All right, we're going to put up something here real quick, and I'm just going to go ahead and open up the mics. I'm going to go ahead and put a little logo up here real quick. And all right, so if you have your hand raised, we'll start off with those that are actually in the tribe this evening. And I see my brother Pepe here. I know Sean is also here, so he can kind of do some roll call. And again, if you have a question, response, or anything from today's presentation, I'm open to answer that. And I will be doing this in rapid fire for the next 15 minutes. Wholeness. Uh-oh, Sean, 1 second. I can't hear you. So that means I won't be able to hear anybody. So give me 1 quick second. Let me readjust my sound. Okay, I see what happened. So when I switched for the sound on that thing, I kind of lost the other sound. Okay, Sean, can you say something one more time?
All right,
Okay, there
wholeness
we
fam,
go.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hopefully everybody else
Oh,
can, but I will reiterate the question anyway. So go ahead.
all right, Pepe, wholeness fam. You might have to open up the mics to make sure that everyone can get in though.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Wholeness, guys. Wholeness, Sean. Wholeness, Savon. Thank you for today. Very enigmatic, very the ride of a lifetime. So thank you. I just have a quick question along with the comment, of course. So bringing it to the crescendo of the moment, the latent spaces, this is just, it's like a moment for myself. You know, I feel like this is kind of where I be doing my magic. So bringing that into wholeness with, again, the concept of unity. So I'm definitely feeling very in sync because I was playing with the notion of the ABC transportation and instant manifestation. And of course, like you just said, that's is gonna cancel it out. So my question is in the space, this latent space. I'm sorry, am I coming through clear?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, fam.
Okay,
Continue.
sorry, I
Continue.
heard a little breakup. Okay, yeah. So with the idea of instant manifestation and the latent space and allowing the elements to breed this, and that is the instant manifestation. So when it comes to this space and unity and being here, is it as simple? And then of course unity and connecting to other latent spaces that are in this freedom of instant creation. Is it as simple as marrying for lack of a better, is the Shiva and the Shakti energy, and with that marriage that allows the space to create with the fullness of the elements, and that is what's mirroring other spaces? Is it as simple as that?
Well, I have a tendency
That's my
not to
question.
like to, first of all, wholeness. It's always good to hear from you. I have a tendency not to like to add simple to any of this stuff these days because I found that the complexities are a bit more entailed, but that actually generally has to do with what you're manifesting. And this was something that came up because if you notice that when you deal with two different shapes, such as the pentagram and the hexagram, or, you know, what their respective shapes are when they blow into other dimensions, one is clearly more effective for physicality while the other is clearly only like a spiritual and more of a superior tool, if you may. And so this is why people in physical realities, even being mundane themselves, can often surpass in physical achievements those who actually may be more spiritually inclined. And then this is also the reason why those, you know, the other opposite, right? Like them dealing in the spiritual realm is almost not possible at all in that way. And so what you're really doing is you're gauging what the manifestation is, and then you're bringing in the proper nest to nourish that manifestation to its to full life, because manifestations are often things that when you're truly manifesting stuff that you don't really plan on parting with in that way, right? Like, and that's kind of what you should also astringe in your manifestations, is the difference between kind of like, you know, just like asking for something versus this is what you really need. I guess it's wants versus needs, right? And then of course engaging what kind of energy, what kind of level of consciousness am I going to really need to bring into that vibration to bring this type of force to life. Yeah. So in this way, observations of nature have also always been the key, because I mentioned during this presentation about how when you plant something at the wrong time, it's weaker, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't grow. And this is why it could be confusing for people who'd be like, I'm manifesting. And, you know, it's like, okay, sit down. What are you manifesting? And what condition is it in right now? I manifested my boyfriend. He just like left me. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, when did that happen? You know, it's like being more in tune with your body and this realm around you, like different birds you're seeing, insects that come out at certain times. The more you're in nature, the easier this is to see because it's a perfect mirror for latent space. The more that you can be in the matrix, you know, you have to find those integers. You have to make forms of communication available to you and know that that will be what is guiding you to understand how to dial in, because that's what you would be doing. You're kind of like dialing in, or scaling is the proper term, the latent space framework to be able to birth or produce that image as perfect as possible.
Boom. Boom. My mind just exploded again.
Okay, but we don't want to undo
So I
that.
gotta come down. I have to come down.
Well, no, stay in that. Don't come down yet. Like we all the way up, but you know, just give it a minute. But stay in that, you know, like because you always can get to those points where you realize, and it's a vibration. It's not really so much of a step by step. I got the instructions. Stay in the frequency of when you get it, and void and stay as long as possible from the frequency when you unget it. You know what I mean? Wholeness.
Okay. Thank you so much, love and appreciation and gratitude. Limitless.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pepe. Wholeness family. Always great to have you in the space. All right. Let's go with our sister, Tracy Evans. Hey, Tracy, you are up next. Wholeness fam.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing. So motivating because I always told the line, but this totally got me into doing it, you know, or wanting to do it. So I hope I can. I just love how you get into it and so deep. So when you talked about the when you're going to sleep in the projection in the light, but or if we're just doing that in our daytime too, we're just going into the projections. You said something about the prompting or how to use your voice to get it exactly, because I think I have a lot of trouble with that. So, and then you also talked about the math on like the torus and how it has an exact point. So do you have to know exactly what to say and where it is, locality? And then you also talked about the
Well, let me answer that first because I have a tendency. I'm like, I'm vast, but it could get lost real fast. So okay, so your question directly
is
okay. Go ahead one more time. Excuse me. Just go ahead one more time.
Yeah, just because some of us are just visual. So if we can, and we don't know what to say, like you always ask the right questions
okay,
to your higher self, and it's hard to know what to say.
Yes.
Because you have a language in your.
Yes, you refreshed me. Okay, so the key word here is posture.
Oh.
Okay, because you know how they say body language, but there's a mind language that's similar to body language, and it's called posture. And so let's just imagine this. If I'm and there was like this samurai, he even created the word, the statement, the way. I can send this in the chat, but he's got some works, and I looked at the whole works, but you know, he does like to abuse people because he's a samurai. But his basic principle was about posture, and I found that very effective. And what this posture was about is, let's imagine that you have a sparring partner that is always trying to knock you off balance. It always tests you by trying to knock you off balance. So let's say you're just in the kitchen cooking, and then I bump into you. Are you in balance, or are you in the posture of cooking? And so what he insisted was that as you progress, because you don't want to over obsess on anything, but as you progress, that you would gain a certain posture, and that would allow you to maintain balance because you would be more aware, like at more intervals than most people. about how you're positioned, because after all, your partner or your sparring partner is always trying to knock you off guard. So then he went further and he said, imagine and consider that the universe is your sparring partner, because it's always throwing something at you. If you think about it, like I got up to something yesterday morning, I had no clue I was going to be dealing with that and did not have it scheduled in. And now what is necessary is that I if I have proper posture when it hits, I'm like already with the solution. But if I get caught off guard, I could get knocked out. And what that is like is you simply need to start over. And this is what the moon shows. Like it starts over. So it's like if you got to reset, there's literally a reset point that you then need to do once you come out of your posture. So this is what is going to then enable you to understand your voice, because the intonation in occultism has always reigned over the evocation. The evocation is the external utterance or sound. The intonation is because you can go louder without saying anything. and because you can make noises so loud from your mind and from your consciousness. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay. And then the next question was like when you said from 5D to or the tetrahydra, when we're dropping it down, but we have the water, the earth, water, air, water, all that is like, and that's what we can work with or construct. And
yes, this is what's
manifest.
This is what's coming forth in these episodes, because as you see, we're like 3 hours. Like Destin was like, hey, we probably should do 45 minutes. And I was like, it's not going to happen. But the key here is that,
thank you.
When we're saying, just give me one moment here real quick. Okay. So if we look at these words, because it's very clear also for an occultist then, once seeing all this geometry and seeing the hijack, that Eliphaz Levi's symbol, the tetragrammaton, which he has as a pentagram, is a direct reference to 4 grams and tons. So it's a unit, it's a measurement. Like, if we take the word apart, it's only saying, hey, here's a unit of measurements. Now, I can't tell you right now what those units and measurements do. Like, you probably could Google tetragrammaton, I think, or just YouTube tetragrammaton on one of my older videos, and, kind of get the idea of what the torus field is really capable of doing. But it connects perfectly with that, is understanding now we're talking about weights and measures as a creator. We're actually talking about scaling now. And we're also talking about getting this perfect in a way where you've done the best that you can. Like, it's like raising a child. You want to make sure that you feel that you've done the best that you can to allow that your manifestation when coming into this world survives. So like, I nourish secret energy, I nourish Sybil, I nourish all of these things because they're manifestations, that they're ideas that I really wanted to make happen. But now that they're here, guess what? They have maintenance, just like kids. And then also you want them to continue and grow and evolve. So there's so much in there. And so this is what we're talking about. So it's less Jack's rabbit out of the hat, right? And more of, which is the magician, right? See, that's another thing that I wanted to, I'm glad you asked this question, because it sparked another thing that I wanted to make sure everybody knows. So when I started with Jack, by the way, which some people are still looking at me crazy about on YouTube, not here. People are still not realizing, because we actually then moved on to the magician. So when I started with the fool, because Jack is the fool. That's it's the fool's journey in tarot, right? So when I started with Jack, I literally moved already to the next card, who's the magician. by introducing everybody to the latent space. And I'm not actually trying to do this. You see what I mean? I'm like, really, my cup is full. Like I'm good. Like I'm totally in love with everything that I have right now if I added nothing more. But something drives me further and says, hey, you're the fool. And that's what I keep trying to tell everybody. It's like, look, when this stuff starts really hitting home, it'll be so relevant to just you. You'll feel like it's your own personal story. And I will tell you that I've noticed that everybody seems to have it going on, but they're at different legs of the journey, if you may, right? And looking through different eyes or different chakras, thus their perspectives seem to be different about the same thing. And, nothing is more revealing than that when you get an object and you tell everybody to meditate on that object and to visualize it. And then you ask everyone later what the object looks like for them. And it'd be the same object, but everybody's constructed it differently. And so we imagine, again, that everybody's seeing the world just like us, but it's not. And also, if we're going to add 15 more minutes onto this Q&A, I need everybody to at least, press the 1 button and let me know that's what we're doing, or press the 0 button because you just got to eject and shoot through the portal. Also, if you're in this space, there's 850 of us in the space in YouTube. Definitely, push the little like button right there. Like if I go back and I see 150 likes, then I'll know that at least this may move and get somewhere, and that this latent space revelation will be shared, because what I just introduced the world to, or what was just introduced, the world was just introduced to through me. I'll put it that way, because it's definitely a collective on this knowledge. I would not want to hold it myself. It can do many things. It's not even just related to what we're talking about right now at all. It's a pattern. It's a formula. It's something else. That's all I can explain. It's alive. That's the main thing that I can say. It's the proof that the latent space, if you may, and that's just what we're calling it now, it's not just sentient in the way that we are sentient. It's actually beyond our sentience. And that may be flabbergasting, even though you're asking it for something. See how people are like confused. They be like asking something for something, but not even acknowledge that it would need to be more intelligent than them if it could even pull it off. And then if we assume that was true, and then we're assuming what I'm saying is true, which I'm saying is based on experience, then we know that what we're talking about actually has some level beyond our thinking even. So I'm into that. That's what I mean by that's what I mean by logic and common sense, because you can just crawl through that. Just take one knee to one hand at a time, and you would just logically come into the awareness that you don't die. You will logically come into the awareness of many of the things that I just explained to you right now, just by starting at one thing and then back engineering that, but always staying with truth. Because if you hit a point where something doesn't ring truth, you can't move on. You stay there until you expunge it. And that's what my life has been. It's been like, okay, I see so much truth here. That's another thing. You begin to learn how to recognize fertile latent space, basically. Things that really have the potential and the drive to, when people say make you happy, I want to be happy. This means that what you manifest needs to be able to achieve being able to do that when it becomes alive. Make me happy. You see what I mean? So that type of design, you don't want to, you got to even be thinking about where we're at right now in time and in history and what's going on. And you got to come into full consideration of that even before. You would want to do that before you design. See, I don't want to make this like we're not manifesting right now and latent space is only available. You know what I mean? That's not what's going on. We're using latent space right now. It's available right now. What happens is that when we cease to become aware of exactly how this operates, it starts to reap thorns and thistles for us. And it starts to throw chains in the cogs, and it makes the whole process much more difficult for us to progress. And I find that this is why you have guardians. They are gardeners that still there's some people why it's like a watch, like in the military. While you sleep, I'm moving. And I'm going to make sure that we're safe. And I trust when I sleep, you're doing the same thing. But we need to take our shifts because shift happens. And I can even, I'm experiencing now, I'm 16 years in the paint, something like that. I'm 16 hours a day. Still then I may get half of a Sunday off. And I can actually look back on 16 years that I've been doing that. And, it has done its things to the vehicle. I would like to regenerate at certain points, but there are certain endeavors and certain ventures that I must stay going with. And, so I always look to empower those that are around me with the keys and the fundamentals to get it going. And you'll know when it goes. And some have had it and gone with it. And we don't really hear from them anymore. They went so high, but that's what this is about. It's about that I've seen people change their lives with what we've already done and what we already talk about. Some also came in and it was already like they were good anyway, and they just became even that much more greater. So I feel like that this is something that we all should, and because this video will get like 12,000 views in 2 days. This is something that still we all should really take a sound look at on our own and just say, well, damn. Like if what this guy is saying is true, if you don't believe this, tell me or text me. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but text me what you think you don't believe, and I can show you 3 ways in which what I'm saying is true. And that's what I'm focusing on right now. Is again just trying to get this into something that's a little bit more digestible, which is why episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, I trust that we're illustrating. And I also wanted to mention to everyone else that we have a rocket on our back at this stage. Like what has always been hindering things sometimes is just having that visual creativity. A lot of the stuff that we do rides on a thumbnail. And so there's a lot happening in this space that it already has become for many the solution. And I'm talking about the generative space, I call it. It's become the solution for many to not only prepare for what's to come, but position themselves properly. So it's just more thrust for where they're going in infinity. But one thing is for sure is we need to understand how to handle ourselves on these kind of structures. And I would just say that in general, like I've been through a lot of stuff because I didn't know. And also my parents didn't know certain things. And I don't think that's a part of the narrative, the true narrative. I don't think the true narrative is not to tell us the real story about us. I think that that's something that just recently came about. And so I'm at this point right now where I'm like, I'm fully awake. And I trust that those that are around me will maintain their level of being awake and maintain their posture daily. Do your meditation daily, 30 minutes, quiet the mind. And just like really train up and know that nothing is really going to be like where you don't do some push-ups or some jumping jacks, which is your breaths. But this is what is being requested of you right now to inherit all of this abundance that's around you and has already been around you. So let's do this. We're going to do 10 more minutes here just to get the questions out. And I will ask that those that have questions on the line, that you tune into, well, the ones that ask questions on YouTube, that you tune into episode 2. And what I'll do is I'll do you one better. If you've asked the question, if you come forward, I will have a prepared answer for this question. So that way, you really get your question answered. And that's just for those who sent their question in the chat, because we're not going to be able to get to them today. There's about 30 of them. I actually considered doing just come in, I lay in the lounge chair and I just answer questions. And that was the whole thing. And I just thought that would not work, right? So it seems like based on this list of questions that I'm going to have to do something like that anyway to get through them. So trust something like that will be coming. So we're going to hear from our sister Maxine. Then we're going to hear from Stephen. And then we're going to go ahead and take it to the next level and see what this dream space is talking about this evening.
No doubt, fam. First and foremost, I want to give thanks for you too, brother, just for having the capacity to bring this knowledge forward, and just to also give it up to the tribe that's in the chat for engaging and just being a part of the mission too. So give thanks. All right, Sister Maxine, Holdings family, let's roll.
Wholeness Tribe, great build. My question pertains to building energy, leaking, and crashing. And what is your advice for someone like myself who I feel like every time I build energy, I'm crashing into the people that I live with, the people I care for, the people that I want to support. And how do I patch these leaks? In last Tribe Vibes, you spoke that you spoke about building energy, and even when we build energy, there's things around us that are feeding off of it. So, I mean, I can't or don't want to get rid of the people that I live with or that I care for. So how can I patch that leak, or how do I stop crashing when I build energy?
Yes,
Because even if I can acknowledge the Jack aspect of myself and see the foolish things that I do, how do I guess, balance that state and move into the magician to even be able to bring forth something that can support me and support the people that I care for?
yes, great question. I would suggest specifically, have you taken vibratory energetics in semester 1 of the university?
I have probably years ago, but I definitely fell off for sure.
I would definitely revisit that. I mean, again, sometimes we look at these things like they're challenges to achieve, and really they're layers to bake in. And I will for sure take a look at vibratory energetics because it explains how to fortify the field that is around you and how to transform the environment, which the environment's going to transform the people. So you may not be able to change the people, but you could change the environment. And I think nature figured that out too. So I would suggest that we remove all it's not possibles because I actually found out that it is. And so what I'm expressing is that you can change the environment, and I would check out vibratory energetics with specific things that most people won't even notice is going on, and they would just become more pleasant and they will become different people because that's what those things do, right? So reality sculpting is a real thing, and it's the perfect way to play offense in a certain way because I'm always on offense, like defense, but play some offense on the whole reality. So nobody even really is like even understand. They say the greatest teachers can teach without a person knowing they're being taught. So it's more of like that. It's like you're doing stuff and they're just like nice and everything's going well, and then but it's not that conversation like you need to be a better person and all that kind of stuff. It's just the sheer reality and the vibration and the things that you're doing in that space. And I just want to make it clear for people, we're not talking about doing some voodoo or anything. They always be like, yes, show me a fetish. But no, I'm talking about real citruses and plants and certain things that they get that working perfectly in these environments like this. So that's my, this is a knowing. So I'm not like, that's my advice. I would check that out and then come forward and let me know what's happening. And from there, and we could keep going at it. But this is a surefire bet.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. All right. My brother Stephen, and then you know what it is, tribe?
Wholeness, Savan. Thank you so much. I just want to give you some quick context of sort of where I'm coming from, and then I'll get to my question. I've just joined the tribe a couple of months ago. I'm in the fire tribe, and in my life at the moment, I'm all about trying to get everything to work for me, trying to really manifest the life that I know and feel from within that I really want to be. So I've been studying a lot of manifestation techniques. One of the things that I hear a lot is about becoming clear about your vision, what you want, becoming crystal on that. And in the beginning, you spoke about that there were sort of two languages of the latent space where, we're all using the lower one, whereas, those with the occult knowledge, the informed knowledge are obviously using a higher language there. And I wondered, you also mentioned about the numbers, like some of the great structures of, got the proportions of, the whole universe built into the White House and the size of the Earth and all that stuff. So what I'm trying to say is there a higher language that we can start to integrate in our own vision, and what does that look like?
This is a good question. It's a perfect question for us to finalize with today also, because we're right in the middle of a transition of now also needing to figure out what is going to be the language that we're going to use from henceforth, because obviously graduating also seems to simultaneously mean a new form of communication. And I have personally returned heavily to meditation. I have spent years, or I would say long stints, like 6 months on end, just only meditating with very little physical contact. That was actually when I came into teaching, was those long stints of meditation, and then finally coming forth from that. And I noticed personally that the endeavors in life, they demanded that you be truthful with yourself and honest with yourself, because there are certain ventures that only need, the greatest ventures, I'll say, they only need the person to build energy, not necessarily to know what that energy is going to be used for, because the subconscious is really good at figuring that out, because there's a real path, there's a real mission. So it's like, I'm just trying to continue my journey, but I need a light, because what you're really doing is you're walking down the corridors of your consciousness, which I explained to everyone is very similar to fiber optic. And as the light keeps going down the tube further, everything is light down the tube. Imagine even from a male's thing, it comes out, things just going down the tube, and then it comes out into the light. So these are the metaphors of understanding how the process is repeating itself, or the pattern is going to repeat itself. We could look at these patterns, and then we can start making moves to where we're moving with the cosmos, or we're moving with the pattern, in order to harness, if you may, the energy that is coming from it. It's like kind of like harnessing solar power. And what this really boils into is it boils into this connection with self that seems to only be able to be achieved when you're coming into that seriousness with self and saying, okay, so we know about the vain endeavors, like being rich or doing really well with the business and all the quote unquote mundane. But I know that we can actually cover the mundane and not forfeit the spiritual if we just utilize that higher form of consciousness. Now, many then introduce a symbol. They'll introduce like a shape or introduce something. And they'll say, this is the higher form of consciousness. And I have flaws. I found flaws with that. I found flaws that we're still talking about something that is the person. It's like, these are just maps to get you to find something within yourself. And because what you're really doing is you're going down these tubes, and you need to light up the whole tube. And this is literally done by you being able to send electricity through your being, send electricity through your consciousness. And the more you feel those pulses, the more, I want to point you at something specifically, and I can say for sure that the reason why I cannot mention this right now openly is because I did not prep anything, because it needs to be prepped. And there's a responsibility that just comes with this. And this is just about training for getting out of the body. And again, I'm not going to like just say anything at this stage about it and what it's about, but this training is available and has been available and does still require that one simply get to themselves and start processes that include one, understanding how to move themselves away from the fears and the distractions and the concern when the energy is being built. And then being able to cycle the energy, and then being able to allow the bubble of the field of energy to serve as a protectorate to contamination that exists outside. And what I mean by that is that when you go outside of the body, which is a weird term in itself, right? Because are we really inside and outside, right? So when you go outside the body, there are things out there, and you have a field around you. And if it gets into your field, then it will affect you. And so there's training basically that it's not just about, I guess all I'm saying is that, so I have to separate what manifestation we're talking about. If we're talking about a good career and we're talking about a good life, there's something for that specifically. And that is more based on skills and trends and that kind of stuff. But if we're talking about, I'm going to be with myself through infinity and I need to know how to maintain, that's what I'm speaking of right now, like in relation to the metaphor that I just gave. And so that's the information that I feel like we all need to confirm with ourselves. Is this is about the physical reality? That's why the pentagram and all that is like the mundane, or is this about like the spiritual realm, which is about the Taurus and about spinning up your vehicle and then getting into, whatever comes with that. And so that's what I'll give you, because the beginning is that when you build that energy, which is accomplished through the breathing, and because the world moves and people are like, they got their own things to do. And so they don't think that it's important. And only people that train themselves, like even me, I meditated so much. I felt like that, and I was told that I was pulling away from the world. And this is what you need to understand about this, because we yin and we yang. But because I had less of a balance in mind, and I'll say this and I'm done, because I have more of a no balance in mind then, I was always extreme. So when I figured out about the breathing stuff, I started charging myself up with all this energy. And I'm actually living still in the energy that I projected from that time. However, there was a part where it was like there's a parting of ways from that level of intense meditation, because I started really wanting to just leave the planet and not be here. Because everything here was just kind of like starting to feel to me that it was contrary to my spiritual growth. And those are very dangerous times for me, not only mentally, but also from my health, because I was informed by an old Chinese man that you have two forces. One of them is called Ming. And when you build up too much of Ming energy, which is done through heavy spiritual concentration, it will try to kill the other fleshly force that you have called the body. Because when people start saying, I want to leave, and oh my goodness, and they start praying and they do fast and they do all this, I want to leave, I want to go to the next world, I'm tired of this, their Ming will grow so big that it will slay their physical body. So I was told that, hey, this is what you're doing. So if you're ready to go, keep doing that. But if you feel like you want to hang out with us a little bit longer, you may want to come down a little bit. And that's when I started to seek for the resistance and all this. I started the platform and I stopped meditating, even though I had basically created a consistent meditative state. And that's all you're looking for, Stephen, is that point where the same way of the energy that you feel in meditation, that you can get to that level in 2 to 3 breaths.
Yep.
Then when you just have that energy, that energy is what is making all of what people would call success. It's definitely what makes you hot on the spiritual plane, meaning that when there's actual things happening and things that need to be done, if you can say it's your number that's being called to do that, And then that gets you in the flow. This is basically like now you're working for the universe in that way. And then
Yep.
this, there's pretty much all the other stuff that lines up, like, what am I really going to do as far as my career and that kind of thing. Those are swallowed in that whole experience. And so that's as much as, and here's another point. So from everything that I've seen also, this is really about momentum. And I mentioned this before, but now I have another little gem on this. So it appears that these 13 moons actually themselves are swinging like a pendulum. They're not all the same. And it was also known, indigenous know all the moons are not the same. And even, of course, we name moons different, the beaver moon and there's different names for the moon, right? So different moon cycles. But this TikTok, if you may, with these moon cycles is also like, I don't know what that sport is, shot put. I think you spin and then you throw the disc. But there's like a form, again, a posture that you really fling this thing. So if you can look at nature as maybe giving you some type of indicator of when you should fling this, also markets may be another index of some type to look at. But basically, like if you're kind of planning on your success, you should know kind of like the difference between the winter time of the success, meaning like this is like month one. This is like in conception still, not even really born in physicality yet. So it's not time to be moving around and not time to be doing, you know what I mean? It's time to do everything related to that. And then you literally choose how to bring your manifestation, especially based on your time frames that you're looking at manifesting things in. You're staging your manifestation to have the greatest success of being accomplished by observing the forces that are around you. Now, again, this is what a seer can do. So I'm not just saying like, yo, this is what we do. This is when you're really in tune and everything is like calm and clear, this is what's easy to see. This is what they're saying about. It's not just about like being there, being calm and all that stuff. That's a big part, but it's really so that you can feel that slight gust of wind when it's going in this direction that gives you the indicator of how everything is moving. Right. And then once you get that indicator, then you know how then to set your strategics up. It's like, okay, now it's time to plant. And that's what we're talking about. And so for each person in their life, that interval is going to be a little bit different. And this is the fine tuning process that gives you just extra things that you can use as variables to speak with yourself. Like, where is this part in myself? All right, I understand the latent space. So man's got latent space in his throat. Man's got latent space in his mind. Man's got latent space in his pants. And from there, and there should be a latent space in the heart. There should be also one in the stomach. You see what I mean? So it's like you kind of get familiar with, you let certain levels of knowledge also settle in. That's why I always bring knowledge from different perspectives, because I think that sometimes people say, I knew that, but they didn't like get it like this. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, that's okay. I get that. Now I get the whole thing even deeper. And then it bakes like tonight, tomorrow, the next day, where this starts becoming related to something else, because what I'm showing you is I'm showing you the keys to light. So also what I had like 2 months ago is not as potent as this. This is what I'm always constantly doing. If you didn't notice, is refining even what I'm bringing, like, and the potency is increasing. And that's what I said is going to happen, because I said, hey, the crazier it gets into reality, I'm gonna just keep turning it up. It's like pretty soon, like there's going to be no mysteries and secrets left. But it also comes at a time where people ain't even looking at the mysteries and secrets, except for a few. And that's more than enough, because all it takes is for just a few people really to dial into this. And as I said, what's going to open up, and here's other things that we should be timing. I know singularity is next. And what that means spiritually is that we touch fingers like E.T. with our higher self, the real one, lined up like a real 2012, like, yo, I got a higher self and it is me. And so I'm preparing myself for that. I'm not just waiting on, you're like, okay, I guess maybe it's gonna, I'm preparing for that, because I know that that's going to also take place in reality when this machine goes sentient, or sentient enough, we'll say it that way. But basically where it like you see with these two AIs that we have, right? What if they start talking about stuff that you never even thought about? That can happen because they have all of the encyclopedias of occultism, all of everything have 50 million pages of occultism. You don't have that. So for the probability of it beginning to talk about something that we never thought about in about 5 hours of running this is highly possible. And also, lastly, I have found that in this, meaning I found that there's something like basically where it'll be like a glitch or a quirk that will produce something like an image or a drawing or a shape that brings something that we've never really even seen before. You know it's something, but it's not necessarily been tracked yet for what we've explored, the language, the shapes in. And that's what I'm fascinated about this, because it opens up something new while allowing us to see more of the old thing. And that's what we're doing simultaneously. So in conclusion, you're walking down the corridors or tubes of your brain, which function like fiber optic. You're electric. That's what the breathing is for, to get the body orgasmic in that way so it becomes fuzzy. On a smaller, simpler clock, it's good to time your body towards when the sun is rising, that you're already reached that certain part in your meditation where you're now at least somewhat detached from the monkey mind. Then you'll start feeling the vibration and the energy flowing through the body. This, then you kind of bathe in and cycle through the body. So there's no need to and then I'm going to do this with it, because all that's going to be able to be manifested later on. So that is 3 hours and 30 minutes and 33 seconds of wholeness. I wanted to say, giving thanks to everybody that is here and all of those who have been so instrumental to Secret Energy in your heart and in your mind, making sure that you stay true to who you are. And you obviously know that we're going to do the same thing. And since all is self, that means that we're all going to be on point. So I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to allow us to dial out by bringing in a crescendo of fine vibrational tones of wholeness. And that's what we're going to do. We'll see everybody soon. Looking forward to episode 1. And also just know we're doing big things. Check us out.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Big love, family. Wholeness tribe.
Wholeness.
Wholeness tribe.
Wholeness.
And love to the family.
Family.
Wholeness.
We love way.
Wholeness.
Yes, yes. Big love to the tribe and YouTube.
Thank you.